All right, it is 6:04 p.m. on Tuesday, June 14th, and I will call to order the Ross Valley School District Board of Trustees regular meeting, again, for Tuesday, June 14th, 6:04 p.m. We start with the closed session, so we have two closed session topics for discussion tonight. We have the public employee evaluation for the superintendent, and we have conference with legal counsel for anticipated litigation for government code section 54956.9E1, one case. We don't have any community members here to speak on the closed session items, so we will now close the meeting and move into closed session.
We won't close.
What?
We're not closing.
We're moving into the closed session. We're just going to move into the closed session and then we will reconvene into open session. All right, we are reconvening into open session out of closed session. It is 7:10, and then I said we're reconvening into open session. Before we move on to the content of the meeting, which I know that you are all here for, we have a few procedural items that we do at every meeting. Thank you for your patience in getting everyone in here. The first procedural item that we have is to take a moment, as we do at every meeting, and reflect on the democratic process in which we are all participating tonight, in which we all participate in every day, and as part of a community and a civil society and as part of our public education system. So I welcome you all tonight to this Democracy in Action moment. And as we are gathered here in the district office, I would like to acknowledge, as I do at the start of every meeting, that we're currently located on the unceded ancestral lands of the Coast Miwok people of present-day Marin and southern Sonoma counties. And we honor with gratitude the land itself and all of its ancestors, past, present, and emerging. And before we say the Pledge of Allegiance, which we do at every meeting, I also take a moment to also acknowledge that June is Pride Month. And alongside the celebrations and conversations that are happening in our schools right now, or that had been happening in our schools, now that they're done, we also want to take a moment to appreciate both the struggles and accomplishments, past and present, made by the members of our LGBTQ community. Pride Month is celebrated internationally every year in June to commemorate and remember the Stonewall riots that took place in June of 1969. And it was officially recognized by the US government by President Bill Clinton in June of 1999. Pride Month is especially important because it's also a time to acknowledge the pursuit of equal justice under the law and equal rights. And so with that, I would invite you to say the Pledge of Allegiance with us. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Our next piece of protocol is to adopt the agenda and the time allocations. So are there any issues with our agenda or time allocation? No. Now, entertain a motion to do that. I say a motion and a second. So we'll do roll call. Ryan?
Aye.
Marie? Aye. Rachel? Aye. Leslie?
Aye.
Shelley? Aye. So the agenda and time allocations have been approved. One last piece of protocol. Welcome to you all tonight. I know there are many of you who haven't maybe been at a board meeting before, so I just wanted to review kind of how this is going to flow. It's the same way that it flows with all of our agenda items. So here's how it's going to go. This is a meeting of the board for us to conduct our business in public and to hear from you, the public. But it isn't a meeting of the public, and it's not a public workshop. Sometimes we do have public workshops, but this meeting is a regular board meeting. So the way that it goes is that for each of the items, including the one that you all are most probably here to speak to, we will listen to a presentation on the item, and then the board will have time to ask information and clarification questions of the staff and the presenter. Maybe make some summary statements to make sure that we've heard the information correctly. And then it will be opened up for public comment. And to be fair, everyone is going to be given the same amount of time to speak. So after we have the presentation, I'm going to ask for a show of hands to see how many people want to make a public comment. And based on the number of hands that I see, I'm going to have to make a determination about how much time to give each person for that public comment. Once we open up the public comment, we hear public comments, then we close the public comment period and bring it back to the board. And at that time, there isn't a back and forth and discussion after the public comment period is closed, again, because that would be a workshop and we would be in a public workshop meeting, and this is a board meeting. So once the public comment is closed, and I know that can be frustrating sometimes for people, because you might hear something in our discussion after the public comment that you want to comment on, or you hear a comment that you want to comment on. But if we did that, again, we'd be getting into a back and forth discussion, and that's not the board meeting. So I just wanted to clarify for everybody in case that's not clear. I'm going to ask you maybe to ask someone else, just because again, it's not a raise your hand and have an ongoing.
Well, when people yield their time to other speakers.
So I will say, in order for people to continue to make their statements, if you hear something that somebody has said that you agree with, you can take 5 seconds and just say, I want you to know that I agree with the speaker before me, or I agree with that speaker. You don't have to use your whole time. But we don't bundle the times. But please do, if there are people that you agree with, you can just say, I want you to know that I agree with that speaker, and just use it shorter. You don't have to use the whole time. If you hear something after public comment and you have a question about it, or you want to make another comment, please do put it in writing and send it to us, and we can, and then we can get your comments that way. All right. So, those are all of the protocols. I'll reiterate that again when we get to the public comment section. Our first item on the agenda is item number D, and that is a recognition of our one retiring district employee. So,
I will just like to start. This is always a bittersweet time, is recognizing our retirees, because this means that as one chapter is closing, it's closing for us, meaning we're going to lose you, Kitty, and we're very sad and sorry to have you go. You have been an extremely valuable asset to Ross Valley, and we're so glad for your time with us. But for you, this is another chapter that's open. It's another door, and it's another time in your life that you get to spend an amazing amount of time with your beautiful family, grandchild, and get to have an amazing rest of your time, spending it the way that you want, sleeping in, doing whatever you want. It is all up to you.
It's not happening. Not gonna happen.
Yeah. So thank you so much for being here with us this evening, and we're very thrilled to be able to recognize you here for your time with us. And now I'm going to turn it over to Judith Berry, Principal of Brookside.
So Kitty has been a special day class aide at Brookside in our special day class program I've had the pleasure of working with Kitty as her principal for 6 years. She has an incredible amount of dedication to all the students that she works with. Everyone on the staff loves her. And actually, Mercy, you may have how long she's been with the district. She's served in many different roles.
Years. Yeah.
12 years and helped so many students. And we are going to miss her terribly at Brookside, but we hope when she's not taking care of her grandson, she's going to come back and sub for us.
Thank you. I think the year you started, Kitty, is one of the 2 years that I was principal at Brookside.
It was.
Yeah, so knew you outside of school when our kids played soccer together, and it was great to have you start with us at Brookside. So thank you for all of your years.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And so we have just a small token of our appreciation for you to put wherever you would like in your home. And sorry, I can't come around from the table, but is your collage here, which describes all of the wonderful adjectives, adverbs, characteristics that your colleagues at Brookside have said about you. So this is for you to have and for to remember forever.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Give you a high five.
Thank you.
So always part of our recognition is to have a little bit of a ceremony and time to chat and so on. So we're have that set up in the kitchen area this evening. So I know anybody's more than welcome to come in, and we'll open up the door from the hallway and from the bathroom area into this area for anybody who would like to come in. But for Judith and Kitty and family, if you'd all like to come in this way, that would be fantastic. It'll probably be about maybe another 10 minutes, and then we'll be moving on to the different items.
We couldn't hear you. Could you say that again?
About 10 minutes.
10 minutes for what?
For us to do, we always do a brief receptions for retirees to acknowledge and appreciate them. So we're just going to do what we normally do for her and have a brief retirement.
Are these seats going to be freed up now?
Unless they stay for the
Congratulations.
And I will get the audio turned up out there, so if anybody wants to sit down outside and hear better, I will have the audio turned up. All right, welcome back we're back from that recess. And we're going to move into the next agenda item, which is agenda item E, communications. And the first item on that is a report out from the closed session. We don't have anything to report out from the closed session. There was no decision, just introduction. And at this time, what I mentioned with respect to public comment, if there's anybody here in the audience who wants to make a public comment on something that is not on the agenda tonight, this is the time for open public comment on items that are not on the agenda. So if anybody's here for that, they want to raise their hand. The other quick note I want to make about the not on the agenda public comment time is that if you want to come to a board meeting and talk about this item or any item, you are welcome to come to any of our board meetings to talk about an item that is not on the agenda, and you have open public comment time at this time in every meeting. So if there's something after this meeting that you want to come back and talk to us about on this topic that you're interested in, you're welcome to come back to any meeting. It doesn't have to be a meeting where it's on the agenda, and you can talk to us during open public comment. So since we don't have anybody tonight for that, we will go ahead and move on to board announcements. And this is the time for board members to make announcements things related to our
Yeah, so it's been a busy 2 weeks. I was able to attend all 4 of the music department concerts, which were fantastic. I was able to attend all 4 of the band and music choral orchestra concerts that we held in the White Hill High School. They did fantastic. It was really great to see fifth grade performing, and they were so excited. It was great to see them all together. I also attended the Hidden Valley Variety Show, which was fun, and it was creative and funny, and it was just so wonderful to see these courageous kids get up in front of their peers and do whatever they wanted to do, whether it was dance or a skit or play piano or violin. So kudos to those children. And then I also went to all 5 of the promotion ceremonies for our district schools, and it was just really touching and heartwarming to hear the kids speak, and interesting to see how the different schools honor the children that are moving on. And just I want to say congratulations to all our graduates and teachers and staff and families who got those kids to the point where they were ready to move on. I know. Any other board announcements?
And then there's the inauguration, like there is the YTL graduation, which was really a lovely ceremony. Compared to last year where people could be mingling more, last year we were all in our little pods of families, so this time was definitely a time to reconvene with some families that I had not seen like for the last 2 years or 3 years. So that was really lovely and yeah, very good event, just lovely time. Yeah.
Correspondence and communication to the board. We've had a lot of it. Marcy, do you want to say anything about
They've all been posted that were received by 3 o'clock today. Any that have come in after 3 o'clock today will be posted in the next board meeting. And so they're put into 3 groups, but every single one of them that was received is there. If it went to any individual trustee and or me or both the trustees and me, so they're all there. And I know that you all received them, so I've had a chance to review all of the written communications.
Thank you, Marcy.
So thank you for all of your written communications. They're posted. We've read them. If you would like to read them, they're probably posted on our board documents so people read each other's letters and things. Okay. On to items about presentation. Before we move on to this item, I just want to make one other note. These microphones, for any of you who have listened to our recordings or for the live audience, which is out there, the microphones are very, very sensitive. They can hear crinkling. They always hear it when I open up a can of water to drink. So in order for everybody to be heard when they're making a public comment, and for the listening audience to hear them, and for the recording to get it, you need to be as quiet as you can, to be respectful, and to make sure everybody is heard. And before we get into the content that I know you're all here for, I also wanted to just clarify a few elements for everybody about this agenda item. So hopefully that we can all just take a deep breath and really listen to the presentation. So that clarification really is that this board has made no decisions on this particular item that's coming up. So our first item is the discussion of the lease extension for the Fairfax and Anselmo Children's Center. We have made no decisions to date. We have had 2 open public meetings on this topic and no decisions were made. We haven't given notice of 30 or 60 days to the Child Care Center at either of those meetings or between them. And we intentionally put this agenda item on as a discussion item only. It's not an action item, and we are not making any decisions tonight on this night. So I just wanted everybody to know that and take a deep breath before we move forward with the presentation to clarify what exactly is happening tonight on the agenda item. So with that, I am going to turn it over to staff for a presentation. Thank you.
And so as you mentioned, this is the third meeting that we've had on the lease extension for the Fairfax and Anselmo Children's Center. And what I've done, because there is conflicting information out there, that I've asked Terry Tao, our legal counsel, to kind of do an entire recast for all of the trustees, so that just in case there's any confusion or anything like that around any of the topics that have come up in the previous 2 board meetings, we can have a recap of those. And so Terry Tao, our district legal counsel, is here with us tonight. He'll be participating by phone. And as you mentioned, this is not an action item. It is still a discussion item before the board, as the board has to do its business in public. And so everything that they do has to be in an open section. This is this kind of a topic. And so just to kind of recap just a little bit is that sure.
Well, she has a mask on, and she needs to have a mask on.
Wow. I will do my best to speak a little louder. So we started having conversations with the Fairfax and Anselmo Children's Center when I received a call from Director Peggy Consty back in the middle of March as the center was interested in wondering if we would consider a lease extension or at least an intent for a lease extension so that they could apply for some facility upgrade grants. And so not knowing if I or Chris Carson, our business manager, have the authority to enter into any kind of a lease agreement with an entity that wishes to enter into one. I contacted our legal counsel to get information about that and also to understand under this particular grant or any others that would be out there, what might be the requirements that the district would have to look at as the property owner and the landlord. And so that's where we get started. And as you mentioned, we've had 2 meetings on this topic, and after each of the meetings, per the direction of the board as well as per the direction of the board, staff and Terry have met with representatives from the Fairfax Summit Center Children's Center as a recap for what happened in those 2 meetings. So I think, yeah.
Can I have somebody to ask the people out there if they can hear the audio on the screens? Can somebody just go quick ask if they can hear the audio on the screens?
Okay, so I think that's where it takes us up to now this evening for a continuation of the conversation with the board. So let me make sure, Terry, are you with us?
I am on the line, yes.
Okay, great.
I assume everyone can hear me.
We'll turn this up and get Terry.
All right, thank you, Terry.
So, thank you. So just a brief introduction. I am Terry Tao with the law firm of Tao CA. I specialize in school and school facilities related construction. I've been doing it for 30 years. I am also a licensed architect. So I was brought in soon after the March 17th request from Heidi Tomsky to extend the lease in order to qualify for what's called the Department of Social Services grant. That grant was for purposes of infrastructure improvements for the current Fairfax and Anselmo Child Care Center site, which is the old Deer Park School. That evaluation led me to start looking at the lease, and I quickly determined that the lease had expired, and since it had expired, it required some further evaluation because there are some new laws that had kicked in with regards to the needs to do what's called CAPS evaluation, an ADA required evaluation under Civil Code Section 1938. As part of the typical evaluation, I had land use analysis prepared, and I had the opportunity to review that land use analysis. And since it was a very short period of time at the board meeting where this information was first presented in public on May 10th, I presented to the board some concerns that I had based on the information that I learned with regards to land use and some of the significant items that were identified, including things like ADA requirements, fire requirements, and other requirements that I'll go over in a little bit more detail later. So with that, we had the opportunity to review during the board meeting on May 10th. I talked about the lease-related concerns and how this request came about. And we went through some of the Department of Social Services requirements, which included not only the 4-year lease, but in the footnotes, they have a number of legal requirements that are referenced that the Department of Social Services requires compliance with, including ADA, government code, public contracts code, prevailing wage, and DSA requirements to maintain the Field Act, which is applicable to the Deer Park structure. Just as a quick aside, Field Act means that the structure is designed to be safer than other buildings built during that era. All schools are required to be subject to Field Act. They are all subject to a higher structural standard, higher fire safety standard, and also ADA, which is access standard. So all of those would apply with regard to the school. The school was built between the years of 1950 and 1952, which is quite a long time ago. So in doing that review, because of the age of the school, we spoke with the fire inspector, Robert Bastian, and we spoke with a number of other people, but the Robert Bastian issues were quite important with regards to the need for fire access, fire truck access, placement of a fire lane of 20 by 150 foot, the pressure required for fire hydrants, and the need for a secondary route or escape route, because there's only one route into the school, which happens to go across a easement that's owned by the Marin Municipal Water District. So in looking at that, these issues, while not fatal, we did recognize that there were some fairly significant upgrades that would have been made if this school had been a regular school. Because a regular school, every 25 years, the state funds 60% of the construction costs for modernization. So for all of the schools within the district that are occupied by students, they get upgraded every 25 years, which means that every one of them meets current fire code requirements, has a fully addressable fire alarm system, and has all of the other upgrades that come in over each of the 25-year periods of time. This school, however, does not have any of the upgrades, because my understanding is that it hasn't been undergone any serious upgrades or modernization since at least the 70s, which essentially means that it predates any of the education code sections with regard to fire code, fire alarms, and with regard to ADA. ADA was not even invented back then. So those serious safety issues were brought forth in the meeting of May 10th. I also noted general plan designations, which was significant. And the board was quite concerned about the child care center. And they asked that I meet with the child care center to make sure that they were aware of the concerns, and to ask them if they had any responses, issues, concerns themselves, so that we could collaboratively address what was identified as a result of the need to extend the lease. That meeting did occur, and it occurred on May 23rd with Heidi Tomsky. When I met with Ms. Tomsky, we went over pretty much the same issues, and I did address with her that there is a personal board member liability problem that I had not yet talk with the board because everything that I've done up to that point was in open session. So I did address with Ms. Tomsky that there is a liability issue that has been identified, and that liability issue not only goes against the district, but also goes against the individual board members because of the way the law is written with regards to conditions that are identified as potentially being unsafe, which requires both an investigation, a reasonable during that investigation, any repairs that need to be made would need to be evaluated. If there's not enough funds in order to make those repairs, then it is necessary to seek funds in order to make those repairs. So that outline is actually outlined under Government Code Section 83.6. So in the meeting with Ms. Tomsky, I also indicated that the liability concerns were severe enough where I was likely to recommend to the board at an upcoming board meeting that the board may want to consider discontinuing the lease. So I did let Ms. Tomsky know during the meeting on May 31st that that was likely going to be my recommendation. That's not the board's recommendation, but my recommendation to the board that these various issues, including the fire, the ADA, and the various upgrade requirements that have gone on over the past 50 or 60 years, have become a significant issue with regards to safety of the school. I did identify for Ms. Tomsky that the government code section provides for a reasonable amount of time in order to seek funding and to make repairs. And that term, reasonable amount of time, is undefined, but there is a statute that has been suspended, not repealed, but suspended, that used to say that reasonable amount of time was set at 60 days. Which she, of course, indicated was not enough time. I kind of agree with her, but that's what the law says. So I went and I reported back to the board about the meeting that happened with Ms. Tomsky on May 23rd. So that board meeting occurred on May 31st. The May 31st board meeting, I had a closed session with the board. And that closed session is what I said I would do, which is talk about the liabilities, including personal board member liability for some of the conditions which would be deemed unsafe that would require upgrades. And during the open session, I again talked about the various reasons why it is that I saw a safety concern from my legal standpoint. And I went over some of the places where we got this information, including from Robert Bastion, from the Water District, from the Code, and otherwise. The board said, okay, well, if there is a liability issue and it is a lease, what should we do as far as if we should discontinue it? And I was asked to meet with the Children's Care Center and to talk with them about some of the serious concerns, but also go over the law with them. Because there are ways to remediate the situation too. So, and not so much to foreclose, but at least to lay out what it is that the district is facing. So we had the meeting with Ms. Tomsky and Peter Chambers on June 8th. During that June 8th meeting, we talked about some other issues. So other than the list of issues that we talked about, fire, ADA, access, and some of the things with regard to water pressure, we did talk about some questions with regards to what is design immunity, whether or not the child care center has similar types of liability, which by the way they don't. They fall under an act which applies to nonprofits, which is called the Volunteer Protection Act. So their liability is not similar to liability that occurs with school districts and attaches to individual board members. And I went over that area of law, but I did also identify that there were costs that I did identify that there were ways of fixing the problem. And the ways of fixing the problem was to bring the building up at least to current code. And that would essentially alleviate some of the safety concerns. Because this is the equivalent of, let's say, an old car that needs repaired, or an old building, or something that is run down that needs repaired, so that you need to expend those costs. So we did go over that issue during the meeting, and what Mr. Chambers and Ms. Tomsky said is, we think that we can probably apply for grants. We think that we can seek funding. We think we might be able to do some fundraisers in order to raise that amount of money. And I indicated that that would be fantastic because that would alleviate the problem. Since this is not a this building is so dangerous it has to be torn down, or this building is so dangerous that there's nothing that we can do to fix it. There is an amount of money that it is possible to bring this building, the Deer Park property, up to compliance. However, it is a fairly significant amount of money. Since the time of that meeting, I've had a chance to consult with some cost estimating experts, and the cost estimating experts have told me a basic upgrade for the building, what I would call a modernization level upgrade, without even considering the site-related upgrades, is at least in the neighborhood of about $6.5 million. They did not have good numbers because I did not give them all. I was not able to review with them all of the information with regard to the offsite, which would be on top of that $6.5 million because they basically went with the envelope of the building. So that at least gives you some idea of the magnitude of the dollars that we're talking about with regard to any fundraising that would be necessary. We talked about the fact that there is a code, there is a part of this government code section 830.6, which says that the district needs to seek funds in which to make the repairs. And there's an Attorney General opinion that applies. It is 43 opinions of the Attorney General 209. It's actually cited in the June 14th letter that I think is attached to the agenda. And what that opinion of the Attorney General says is if it's necessary to raise funds and you do not have adequate funds to finance the repairs in order to alleviate a potentially unsafe condition, then you need to seek a general obligation bond of your local elected. And that general obligation bond would fund any difference that would not otherwise be raised by the children's center. So I went over that law with them, and I also put that law in the June 14th letter that can be pulled down from the web and read. I think that summarizes just kind of the basics of how we got to where we're at today. Today, what we're here for is for me to report back to the board on that discussion that happened on June 8th, which was about 6 days ago. And that discussion was, we have a safety issue. We have a couple of different ways of alleviating the safety issue. One is to repair. And unfortunately, the Ross Valley School District not being used as a school by the district. But it is possible for the Fairfax and Anselmo Child Care Center to raise that money if they believe that this is a worthwhile cause. And secondly, that the other election is if it's not possible to raise this money, if it's not possible to do the repairs, then we would really need to be looking at alleviating this serious liability problem for the board and board members. And I only have a reasonable period of time, whatever that means, but I would only have a reasonable period of time in which to make that call in order to alleviate the liability condition for the board members who I don't think when they signed up to be board members ever understood that there would be this deer park site that could potentially cause them a liability problem, which is part of the reason why we're having discussion today. I want to clarify a couple of things. It is not my charge or my goal to evict or to seek to have the Children's Care Center forced to move elsewhere. However, it is my charge to take care of the board, which is my client, and make sure that they are not placed in a liability situation. And that responsibility to the Board of Education that they're not placed in a liability situation is why we're having this difficult discussion. It would be the same type of discussion that you would have if you had a safety problem with your car or a safety problem with your house and you had to come up with the money in which to do it. It's a similar type of discussion if it's a safety problem with a house that you're renting to somebody or a car that you're loaning to somebody. Your discussion will be a little different. So that is the discussion that I have been having with the board. That is the discussion that I have been having with regard to the Children's Center. I also believe that it's extremely important to make sure that as part of the investigation, because I'm still in the period of investigation and still gathering facts, that would convince me that there is not a safety problem for the board. That all facts, the research that has been done, the research that's been done for me, the information that's been communicated to me, if any of that information is incorrect, I would need to know that too. I'll give you an example. One of the pieces of information we got from the fire department from Mr. Baskin was that the fire hydrant is actually off-site on Porteous, or actually just off of Porteous. And it's quite far away from the site. So we were left with the belief that it was necessary to pull a fire hydrant all the way to the site. However, I think Mr. Chambers and Ms. Tomsky pointed out to me that there is actually a fire hydrant on the site. We later came to learn from the fire department that the reason why we don't know about that is it's a private fire hydrant. And that private fire hydrant, somebody had indicated may not have adequate pressure. It's in the report that is attached from Michael Baker International. There's a little discussion of the fact that there's not inadequate pressure. I did not recognize that it was for that particular fire hydrant, but we want to get this information right. So I have asked the district to try to figure out the pressure of this fire hydrant and to go get it tested, because that does play into the analysis of how much work needs to be done, how much it's going to cost, and whether or not we are looking at a safety problem with regards to the school that could end up being a liability problem for the district and the Board of Education. I also had the opportunity to speak with Fire Chief Jason Weber, and I do want to point out that Mr. Weber was asked a set of questions with regards to inspections that have happened at Deer Park site with regard to the Children's Center. Inspections are regular inspections that are in the context of whatever it is the building is. Those inspections, I'm sure passed. He indicated to me that they passed. That was not what it is that my investigation as the attorney was looking at. What I was looking at was the fact that there is the need for certain pressures. There's a need for being able to bring a fire truck onto the site and the ability to service the site in case of fire. And then there are specific codes that need to be met with regards to the building itself, including the need for what's called a fully addressable fire system, or what's called an automatic fire system. That is a fire alarm that's set off just by a fire happening and then notifies the fire department without the need to go to a pole station. That is the current code. That is what is that's required, and that will be what it is that will be imposed on site if there is even the slightest amount of upgrade that's done to that site. And my understanding is just that alarm system alone is probably close to $1 million. And that is not the alarm system that is presently on the site. So these are all things that weigh on the decision making. But I also do understand and recognize that there is a child care center. They've been there for a really long time. They do not want to be displaced, and I recognize that. And I would love to have them stay. However, from the standpoint that I stand, I do have to address the liability issue with regard to the board and what it is that the board would have to face. So with that, I have recommended to the Board of Education to consider either discontinuing the lease because of the liability problem, or figuring out some way to fund the repair of the building. However, since there are really no discretionary funds at the school district for the purposes of enhancing a building that is not used for school purposes, we really need to look at the child care center for the purposes of trying to figure out if they want to stay at the building, how they will go about doing these improvements, because that is not something within the contemplation of the district unless we were to seek funding by going out to seek a bond election. As an aside, if this was being used as a school, this site would automatically be eligible for state funding, and we would get 60% of the funds to do the upgrades that are required for the site. However, this is not being used as a school. We are not qualified for state funding. Therefore, it's not possible for us to come up with the funds. That's how we upgraded all the other schools in the school district. This one does not qualify because of the use. With that, that's all I have. I'm pleased to answer any questions.
Terry, it's Wesley speaking. Can you hear me?
Sure can.
Okay. So can you explain, people very much see this as a school, okay? Can you explain what you mean by that when you say this is not a school versus a property and school operated by the Ross Valley School District?
This is a former school that is being leased out for private purposes. It is being used as a child care center, which is a non-school, considered a non-school purpose. However, the key for this building, Deer Park, is it was constructed under what's called the Field Act. The Field Act was passed in 1933 after the Long Beach earthquake, because there were a number of buildings that collapsed during that major earthquake, and one kid was killed. So there was a significant concern that had this earthquake happened during the daytime hours, a lot of kids would have gotten killed. So the legislature decided to create a responsibility on the part of school districts to not only build to a much higher structural standard, a higher safety standard, but also impose felony responsibilities if there is misreporting or mishandling of what I would call a field act building. So that applies to all schools. Occupied used as a school that is occupied by public school children. However, that responsibility does not continue with regard to the need to upgrade and continually upgrade a building that's no longer used for school. However, there's a weird wrinkle in the law that this is still considered a field act building, and as a school board and a school district, you are still subject to all the responsibilities under Field Act, even for a building that is not being used for a school purpose, meaning for your students.
Terry, in follow-up to that, people are going to hear the numbers that you're talking about in terms of close to $7 million, and they're going to say, well, wait a second, can't some safety issues be addressed for some dollar figure that's less than that? Can you explain for the people who are listening and for the people who are here what this Field Act is and what the DSA requirements are with respect to any work that we do if we do it as the owner as a school district?
Of course. So unlike a residence or commercial building that is subject to local city or county jurisdiction or building and inspection, school districts are subject to what's called the Field Act. And one of the things that the Field Act created was called the California Division of State Architect. The Division of State Architect is a state body that oversees the construction of all schools and hospitals and requires that they be built to that higher standard. With that, there are responsibilities for what's called continuous inspection, for signing of verified reports by the architect, the engineer of record, the inspector, and the contractor. And that designation of Field Act continues to apply to this building, the Deer Park building, even after it's not used as a school. What happens is if you then need to do an upgrade to that building, you're supposed to comply with Field Act requirements. So just to kind of give you an idea about Field Act, if you touch the building, if you do any sort of work on the building, even something as small as redoing the parking area, that will trigger a number of responsibilities. It will automatically trigger what's called ADA requirements, access for Americans with Disabilities Act. That access requirement that will be triggered will necessitate not only making sure the parking lot has the required number of parking lot of handicap spaces, which right now I don't believe it does. It would require that parking lots to have certain slopes and cross slopes, and also that it be accessible. Then the DSA would also require accessibility all the way into the building and to the bathrooms, and all the bathrooms would have to be accessible. In any project that gets upgraded, it automatically will trigger the responsibility to put in a fully addressable fire detection system. I attached the guideline for that in the letter that I wrote to the Children's Care Center called DSA GL-2. That is the what's called the interpretive regulation that applies automatically if you do any sort of work on the building. So almost without batting an eye, you will be performing much of that $6 million worth of work. You can do the math fairly quickly. You're probably doing over $1 million worth of ADA upgrades. You're probably going to be buying a new fire alarm system. And the last thing that they're going to ask for is, are you certified with both the state fire marshal and the local fire marshal or fire chief? And in that case, you certainly will need to have the fire hydrants up to date. You'll need to have the access up to date. You will need to have your secondary access. You will have to have your drop-off zones. And you will also have to have that area which connects to every one of the buildings to ensure that a fire truck can park, which is a 20 by 150 foot long lane next to each building. So those for sure will be imposed. I don't know how much that one's going to cost. But it looks like it goes all the way out to Porteous in order to bring a fire truck in. And you would also have to get agreements with regards to the Marin Municipal Water District, because the access to the site is not across district property. It happens to be across the water district's property.
Terry, this is Shelley. I wanted to just clarify, you used the term that we've been notified of unsafe conditions, and I know that you talked about liability. Part of our purpose is also to think about safety of children in our community. So there's liability, but there's also safety conditions. And when you talk about unsafe conditions, I just want to make sure we're all clear on what you mean by that. What you mean by, what I think you mean by—
This is a sham. You guys keep giving this guy softballs to kind of keep going through the same rigmarole that he's already gone through. Like, you have a room full of supporters for this.
we will get public comments. So unsafe conditions is current code, but right now the building, all of the inspections that are being done is based on the past code.
Most of the upgrades that happened to this building were done when the building was constructed between 1950 and 1952. So you will have virtually none of the upgrades since that time, unless some were voluntarily done between 1952 and the mid-70s, I understand, was when the building started to be used for other purposes.
Board have any other questions?
I have one question. Marie here, can you hear me? Terry?
Yes.
Okay.
I sure can.
The question is that I wanted to make sure I understand the 25-year cycle that that schools have, and the opportunity that we have every 25 years to benefit from that help from the state. Is it when was the last time that we did that at Roseville School District? Do you know that?
Oh, I think Chris will know the answer to that question, but I think all of your buildings have been
Okay, they have been.
done fairly recently.
So that's what you mean by the access to that one-time money that regularly, if that has been, if that was a school with kids of our age group, we would be able to get that money. But right now we cannot.
It has to do.
I'll go over this really quickly so that we've all got the framework down. So in the in the late 70s, all the way until late 1998, we were subject to something called the Lease Purchase Program. The Lease Purchase Program was a state funding program where the state funded virtually, if not all, of the modernization and construction that happened in schools. That lease purchase program has been gone for a number of years.
Okay, that's
then in 1998, there was passed what's called the School Facilities Program, which is overseen by the Office of Public School Construction, and the funding agency is called the State Allocation Board. That program that was set up in 1998 has a 25-year cycle. So every 25 years, you're eligible to get 60% of your school funded by the state, which you mentioned 40% in order to do all upgrades moving forward. So when you do the upgrades every 25 years, you get all of your fire alarms upgraded, you get all of your ADA upgraded, as well as you usually will have some internal items as well as structural items that are upgraded along the way.
Got it.
And that goes through the modernization process, and so you have to go through the entire process with the state. It's also generally part of your facility master plan, and you have to apply for it for each of your school sites. You're not granted a set number. And so in terms of the modernization, we have gone through that with the Ross Valley School District. That was probably part of all of our bond projects that we did. We would have tapped into those dollars in relation to what we call the Gen 7 modular buildings and restrooms at each of the elementary schools. We would have tapped into them for like Whitehall Middle School. And also, the state will tell you that they're going to give you those percentages, but the one thing that has happened recently is they've started cutting back on that more and more. And so now it's almost a 20-80, where the district would have to put up 80%. It's kind of yeah. And again, you do have to go through that process, and it's only every 25 years. So as we start to look at facilities, we would have to go back and look at the last time that we accessed those dollars for each specific school, and then look at what our eligibility is for each of those sites based upon the student populations.
Okay, thank you.
And as a landlord, your responsibilities.
We're gonna get through it.
Okay. Want to make sure that's asked.
Any other questions for Jerry? About public comment? Okay. Yeah. All right, we can do that. So we're gonna go ahead and go out for public comment. We have a what? Oh, we're gonna keep Jerry. Yeah. So he can hear you as well. So he'll stay on the line. So we're gonna go out for public comment. We collected how many?
We have just under 50.
We have just under 50 cards up here. And we are going to need to do timekeeping. So with 50 cards up here, we're not going to do 3 minutes at the podium. We're going to go ahead and do a minute at the podium for everybody. And so if we do a minute at the podium, that's going to be another hour. And so we're going to go ahead and have people.
We'll be here for 3. We'll be here for 4. We'll be here as long as we need to.
2 minutes is the minimum every board meeting I've been to.
Well, we've got 50 comments, 50 people.
People are frustrated.
I hear you. But we need to let everybody be heard, and we need to be fair with everybody. We're going to do 1 minute at the podium. Right? Yeah. And we're going to go ahead, if you could open those doors so people can line up to go ahead and stand up here and get in the line to go ahead and make their public comments. We're going to have people line up.
I think people that are talking line up.
So you can open the back door and have people line up on the microphone. Thank you.
They want you to stand in the line.
Yeah.
Also, what the fuck do you say for a minute?
I'm good. I'm saying what your concern is.
You can go ahead and line up here. Go ahead and line up the microphone. If you would like to come back. If you want to stay here and sit down, and as you see the line, you can get up and speak. You don't all have to like that. All right. Here we go. Let's go ahead and get started. All right. Let's go ahead and get started so we can hear everyone speak. Thank you. I'm going to need a trustee to help keep time. You do that, Rachel? Okay. So Rachel's going to keep time. And she will have a 30-second. Rachel's going to keep time.
Okay.
So she'll let you know when there's 30 seconds left. All right, and then we'll just so that we can hear everybody.
I'll be going first and then.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. And
There you go.
you can go ahead and use that microphone. When you come up, please tell us, please, is it on?
No. It is.
Say that
I
again.
can speak loud enough. I don't know what's
Go ahead, turn it on. Go ahead and turn it on. Okay. When you come up, go ahead and tell us your name.
Okay.
All your affiliated with the subject.
Okay, yeah.
Listening and not recording.
Okay.
So I think your microphone might be live now.
Hello. Can I go? Okay. Good evening. My name is Yesenia Mendieta. I attended the Fairfax Ensemble Children's Center when I was 3 months old, the 5th grade. If it weren't for the center, my 4 brothers and I would have been taken into Child Protective Services. This program has changed my life forever. It gave me a lifelong support system and an extended family. To take that opportunity away from young children in need of that support is heartbreaking. This school district and the community preach for equity and to be honored and recognized, and the need for diversity in our schools, and yet you're trying to eliminate the very families that bring diversity and cultural awareness to this community. It feels as though you are trying to eradicate low-income and Latinx families from this community. Choosing money over the future of children is despicable. You should be reevaluating your priorities. The children and their futures must come first. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Peter Chambers. My son is an incoming kindergartner at Manor. I'm also on the board of directors at the Children's Center. I'm also a local attorney and business owner. I want to address some critical points that still haven't come up in the public session. I've learned that, I will say that I learned from Mr. Tao that's the first time he's talked with the fire chief. My understanding is that you've all received an email from the fire chief informing you that Mr. Tao's facts are incorrect. Both fire department and the water department agree that the continued occupation and use of this building is safe. Number 2, as quoted by the Marin IJ, your attorney warned the board that the property was recently designated as at risk. The entire town of Fairfax was recently redesignated at moderate risk, not something unique to Deer Park. The designation of an entire town cannot contribute to the uniquely unsafe condition of a single property. Number 3, no school board has ever been found personally liable in the history of the regulation he's warning you about. GC 830.6. To my knowledge, there has never been one published court case upholding his argument. The best you can do is rely on 5 50-year-old pieces of advice from the Attorney General's office, and that's what makes the facts critical. An actual report is necessary to warn the board of an unsafe condition if there were one. And in fact, I know that the lawyer is... Is there a sign? Okay. I know that your lawyer is in fact lectured on the public relations aspects of releasing these reports, so I know that he needs a report in order to make sure that you're held liable if you were to, which you won't be.
Save the time for talking.
Hi, I'm Julia Howard-Gibbon. I'm a child care center parent and a soon-to-be Manor parent. I also went to the center and Manor School and White Hill School. Okay, sorry. My dad does the food program at the center. My sister was a teacher there. My partner's on the board. I also work for a local nonprofit in Santa Fe litigating housing discrimination cases. In my work, I hear from Marin County residents, officials, school board members, town council members all the time about how important racial equity is to our community and how important everyone thinks it is to increase diversity in Marin and combat years of racially segregated housing policies that's left us where we are. But all that feels very disingenuous when I see the board that runs an overwhelmingly white school district in an overwhelmingly white town try to push out one of the most important resources that is allowed allowing the few low-income families and families of color to stay in this area. I want to believe you that you believe what your attorney is telling you, because I want to believe that you want to do the right thing, but look at the facts. Even he said the likelihood of you being individually held liable is very rare, and it's never happened here. The idea that a building has been safe for 70 years suddenly has to be evacuated because of a calamity could happen at any moment is ridiculous. Evicting the Children's Center and leaving all these families without this vital resource would be a calamity. If you evict the center, many of the center families will no longer be able to stay in this area. You'll be evicting them.
Good evening. My name is Bill Keene. I live at 170 Forest Avenue in the district. Is it not on? How do you? It is? Okay. All right. I live at 170 Forest Avenue. My stepdaughter, Sati Brewer, she'll speak a little bit later. She went to the center as a child. I'll just be brief. I've listened to the 2 hearings where your attorney talked about this issue. I've read the fire reports which say that the buildings are safe. I would just ask you to consider a few things. First, is there a way for the center to indemnify the district? Is there a way for the residents that use this center to indemnify the district? Because maybe there's a solution that we can get to. Because right now what I see is they applied for a grant. They're not even going to go after the grant because that's going to get them out, according to your attorney. And then now, because the lease expired, what I hear from him is that now all these new things pop up. Well, why did the lease expire? That seems like a convenient way to get the center out of here. And I don't want that on your shoulders, to have that be the reason that they're out of here. So I would ask you, please find a way to keep the center here. I will devote my time. I've given a lot of time to Heidi in the last week and a half to try to help her strategize for this meeting. These kids, people of our color in our community are discriminated every single day against them. This place this place is their home. It's our home, and we should be welcoming and keeping them in our community, not kicking them out. If you are going to evict them, find a place for them to go and pay for them to get there.
Good evening. My name is Maria Alice, and I am a Ross Valley School District and a Fairfax and Anselmo Children's Center alum parent. In the early 90s, I was a preschool teacher at Fairfax and Anselmo Children's Center, and only because of Ethel Seiderman, I received support to go to school and pursue my career in early childhood education. I am now a successful career. I have a successful career. I earned 54 units in child development, and I have a master's degree from Sonoma State University. Fast forward to now, I have collaborated on this book by Julie Nicholson, professor of practice in the School of Education, Mills College, and the examples in an entire chapter of this book, which are going to be seen and used by thousands, millions of people nationally and internationally, are examples of exemplary academic work of the Fairfax San Anselmo Children's Center children. I urge you to keep the center.
May I start? Okay. I am a high school senior at Archie Williams High School. I grew up at the FSACC, attending for 6 years. The Children's Center is more than just a daycare or summer camp. It is home, it is community, it is love, and it is stability. Deer Park is such a special place, with nature bringing a sense of peace and healing. The community there is so tight-knit. When attending, my classmates became my brothers and sisters, and my teachers became my mentors. Still to this day, I'm grateful for the Children's Center taking me hiking and sparking my love of nature, as well as introducing me to music, sports, art, history, and diversity. The staff goes out of their way to inspire and connect with the kids, and I don't know where I would be today without the experience of being here. Please do not take this away from the people that need it.
I am a resident of Fairfax. That was my daughter, and she attended the center. I was a single mom at the time, working full-time, low income. I could not have lived and worked in this community without the Children's Center. So it's very important that it remains in this community. Also, this community talks a lot about diversity, equity, inclusion. These are things that this center is that, and we keep wanting to bring it into our community. It's here. Let's keep it. It's a well-oiled machine, and it is, anyway, that's all I have to say.
Hi, I'm Katie McKenna. I'm a San Anselmo resident and a parent to a rising Brookside kindergartner. Although my son doesn't attend the Children's Center, I am keenly aware of the financial burden of childcare in our community. I pay over $30,000 a year for private preschool, an amount that's been challenging for my family and one that's simply untenable for so many families. Many of my dear friends grew up at the Children's Center, and several send their children there now. These are families who've been rooted in the community for decades and who would undoubtedly be forced to move elsewhere to raise their children if not for the Children's Center services. I personally grew up in a low-income household, and my parents moved us to Ross Valley in the early 90s for the same reasons that all families love it here. Beautiful nature, excellent public schools, safe neighborhoods, and a strong community. COVID has laid bare and wildly exacerbated the struggle of low-income parents to keep their heads above water. This is not the time to increase the pressure. Now is the time to show up and support these families, show them that they matter to our community, and take real action to prevent further racial and economic homogeny in Ross Valley. And keeping the Children's Center running is real action. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Paula Drake. I'm 27 years old, and I attended the Children's Center as a child, along with my 2 older brothers, and now my 5-year-old daughter, Peyton, attends. A lot of her teachers were my childhood best friends. I had my daughter when I was 22 years old and became a single mom at the age of 24. I moved back to Marin to start a new life for my daughter and I. I've worked extremely hard to become a mom my daughter can look up to and be proud of. I work 5 days a week. I attend college classes 3 days out of that week. I'm working towards a career in the medical field. My daughter started attending the Children's Center at the age of 3. When I first began searching for daycares, I was shocked by the outrageous prices in Marin County, and instead of paying for daycare, I took her to work with me. Peyton was placed on a wait list at the Children's Center and eventually was able to get in and make friends. This was the first time she was enrolled in any type of daycare. She was able to make friends and contribute to the class with her kind and caring personality. She began learning the basics of problem solving and how to interact with other children. Last month, my daughter tragically lost her dad, and I was unsure of how I was going to guide her through it. I felt comfortable enough to share the news with her teachers at the center, allowing her to grieve with the support of the entire staff. To even consider finding a new daycare for my daughter and changing the routine that she knows and loves is devastating. One of the teachers named Debbie was one of my teachers as I was growing up. My daughter has formed a relationship with her where she feels safe and comfortable like a mother figure. She always expresses how she loves Debbie so much and looks forward to spending time with her. The center is not just a child care facility, it has become a home and a family. These teachers are not paid an overly generous salary. They are there because they love what they do, bringing equality and hope to the low-income families of Marin County. And as I say low income, this is just a term. We work really hard to provide for our families.
So my name is Meredith Parnell. I'm a resident of San Anselmo, a longtime resident, and I'm here representing the Marin Organizing Committee, an organization of 23 dues-paying member institutions that represent thousands of families in Marin County. We are here in support of the Fairfax San Anselmo Children's Center and in support of a fair, transparent, and collaborative process for addressing any concerns about the center's location and any attempt to relocate the center. The center, founded in the early 70s by our late friend Ethel Siderman, may her memory be a blessing, has been providing critical, high-quality early childhood education to families throughout the Ross Valley for over 40 years and has been especially crucial for working low-income families of color. We understand the concerns about fire danger, but we also know it's virtually impossible to pick up and move a children's center that serves over 100 kids in such a short amount of time. The people you see here in this room are just a small part of the support in this community for the well-being and longevity of the Children's Center. We know that this agenda item is not an action item, but when the attorney for the district is quoted in the paper as suggesting that the Children's Center be given 1 to 2 months to move, you should not be surprised that the community responds in this manner. Ethel was a longtime supporter of MOC and a champion for families and neighbors. We think a collaborative and transparent process that involves the community is the best way to resolve this issue. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Florencia Parada. I am a former parent from the Fairfax and Anselmo Children's Center, a former parent coordinator back in early 2000s, and a Fairfax Children's Center community forever. My daughter also went to White Hill Middle School. I had the privilege to be part of this unique, multicultural, multi-generational community where children and families are vital assets, no matter our backgrounds, a place where parents' engagement is valuable. The center gave us the opportunity to keep working and learning from the many different relationships we were able to build all these years. The center embraces our differences. The center believes in us. The center gives us a place, I feel, that gives us a sense of belonging in a school district that sometimes doesn't feel inclusive. I didn't feel that sometimes, not always, but sometimes. It is important to me to raise awareness about the different biases we all have in regards to low-income communities, immigrants, people of color. The center for us not just only provides a space for families to feel safe, but it's also including us in their decisions and conversations. They also helping us to develop leadership skills, and I understand that we all here are here to improve our community, our individual conditions too. And it's a one-on-one quality care that you cannot find anywhere else. There is also subsidized childcare in crisis. I wait 2 years for my daughter to be in a subsidized childcare to have and to receive the quality care that all children can have, because we all believe education is for all. It's a right, and we respect that, right? So if you really believe in education for all, can you do something for our families? Can you do work with us? Can you find solutions that together can provide quality care for our children, instead of just writing an article and an IJ letting us know that we might be evicted in 30 to 60 days? That's irresponsible. That's not a place to share this information. You're creating panic. And if you care for the children, if you care for education, please do the right thing. Do the right thing, because we do elect you for this. Thank you.
My name is Chris Lyons. I have lived in the Deer Park neighborhood right next door to the Children's Center for 27 years. I'm going to read a few things from the RVSD website. Why have we made equity a priority? We value and are committed to all members of our Ross Valley community, our students, staff, and families. SURE, which is Stand Up for Racial Equity, is an organization built for and by parents and guardians to promote racial equity awareness and practices in the RVSD community. SURE will act for the benefit of all members of the RVSD community. Given these priorities on your website, there's no way that this situation can be looked at purely from a safety perspective. The Children's Center has been providing childcare for low-income families for nearly 50 years. It is the lifeline for some families to be able to live in Marin and the Ross Valley. Please work together with the Children's Center for a solution. Please respect the centered leadership, their history, their work, and the families that they serve by looking at this holistically and not simply as a safety issue.
Hello, my name is Mariana Gaidano. I am an alumni of the Ross Valley School District and one of the many success stories of the Fairfax San Anselmo Children's Center. I am an FSACC alumni, teacher, and parent. I am now celebrating my 10th year teaching at the Children's Center, all while receiving my bachelor's degree in early childhood education from Sonoma State University and raising 2 children. The Children's Center is at the foundational core of my identity. I'm also going to quote from the district's website. The equity mission statement states that they will prioritize equity by, quote, actively engaging, listening, and responding to the voices and needs of our marginalized students, families, and staff, and working to engage in anti-racist actions that build a vibrant, inclusive learning community. The voices and needs of your marginalized students and families are being echoed here in this room tonight. Your families need the center. It is an essential function of their livelihood. If you vote to evict the Fairfax San Anselmo Children's Center, you'll be acting in complete opposition of what your equity mission states. It is easy to claim equity, diversity, and anti-racism statements. However, putting those words into practice is a whole other story. Your actions here tonight will prove where the Ross Valley School District really stands when it comes to issues of equity. Put your words into practice and do not evict the Fairfax San Anselmo Children's Center so that our families can thrive instead of suffer.
My name's Bill Madsen. I live on Porteous Avenue. I've been there for almost 30 years. I worked as a firefighter for 25 years, the last 2 years of which I was a fire prevention and plan reviewer and inspector. So I can speak to some of the fire issues. I'm curious, he's talking about the secondary access. White Hill is similarly situated where there's only one route in and out. And I believe Brookside is also in a box canyon with only one road in or out. So I'd like to hear, and I know this is all for just discussion. I'm just bringing this up for discussion because I know you're not voting tonight. And I'm glad that you explained that. I just like to hear, or maybe next time, the lawyer, Mr. Yao, can speak to that and can. The fire hydrants, the water districts know what the pressure is at any hydrant. The fire departments themselves test the hydrants at least once a year, and they have the pressures for all the hydrants in the area. It's very easy to find out. He made it sound like it was very difficult. It's not a mystery. The other thing is, there was the Field Act and the school facilities, and then there was another act, and in that time. Most of that you had a tenant. I'm almost done, and there was never, as a landlord, you have a responsibility to keep your property in order. This is for the discussion. Right? Yeah, right. So I'm wrapping it up. With those acts, what's the liability for the school district having never done the deferred maintenance? That's it. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Leah Ketching, and I'm the coordinator for the Marin County Child Care Commission. I'm here on behalf of the commission, which is the local planning council dedicated to early childhood. We have 3 main areas of focus that are laid out in our strategic plan, one of which is access, which is our main concern tonight. Fairfax San Anselmo Children's Center provides the access that the community needs to high-quality child care. The commission therefore respectfully requests that the board seeks to find alternative solutions to allow Fairfax San Anselmo Children's Center to remain in their current spot and to continue to provide the services that are so essential to the community. Thank you.
Risk my life. I just want to remind people, our partners at Ross Valley School District, about some really important beliefs. Fairfax San Anselmo stands for, and you have been our partners. I'm Peggy Dodge. My children started as infants at Fairfax San Anselmo and have gone through all of the Ross Valley School District, including graduating from what is now Archie Williams High School. Fairfax San Anselmo has been a tenant of this school district since its inception in 1973. There are places you may not even know were once schools. Lansdale School, Isabel Cook. We were at White Hill when it was closed briefly, and at Deer Park. The center has been successful in securing facilities improvement grants and with the district's approval, made improvements on every property they inhabited, especially Deer Park. I would like to challenge some of the stuff about no upgrades since 1973 that was in the presentation. The Fairfax Town Council talks about and is intentional in its decision-making to preserve diversity and affordability in the area. The early care and education, transportation to and from your schools is necessary to maintain that. You may need to look a little more historically at some things. In the late 1980s, we successfully and safely evacuated the center from the Deer Park School because of a wildfire. So there is history, we've done it. And finally, has this same analysis been done on your entire inventory of properties? Has this been done at Hidden Valley? Has this been done at White Hill? Do not make a decision, please, about one site until you have your whole inventory and you know what you're faced with at White Hill and Hidden Valley. Thank you.
I'm Jamie. I grew up in Fairfax since the mid-'80s. I was at White Hill in the 90s when Marcy Trahan was the assistant principal. I started at the Children's Center when I was 5. My mom, a mostly disabled single parent, struggled to make ends meet. It wasn't her fault, though. My sister and I were pretty much dropped in her lap, but she took us on with open arms. Before that, our lives were unimaginable. During my 6 years at the center, until I graduated out, we were picked up every day after school. It sometimes felt like we spent more awake hours with other kids and staff there than we did with their own parents at home during the school week. We took trips, went camping, swimming, hiking, played flag football and baseball. I was a bit of a tomboy. I loved all the sports. During the summers, we had bike week and were given paper driver's licenses. We hoped we didn't get 3 tickets and lose our license. We had the Pioneer Trek and even met Harrison Ford during the filming of Indiana Jones. We got giant splinters, but always had someone to help take them out. The center even used to have a get well room where we could spend the day if we weren't feeling well so our parents could still go to work. The center is where I gained confidence and learned to use my voice, a place where I was safe to ask questions and have positive encouragement, where we learned how to come together as a team and as a family. The center is where Caleb's memorial tree was planted and remains to this day. It's where I've made lifelong friends. It's where my 21-year-old daughter, who just graduated with a bachelor's in human biology from UC, has returned to work to save money for med school so she can become a doctor to give back to her community. This was her statement from a medical co-ed fraternity. I hope you don't mind, sweetie. If you were given 3 wishes, would wish for to speak all the languages, for her family to never have to worry about finances, for everyone to live happy and a stress-free life. Now, can you imagine being 21 and one of your 3 wishes would be for everyone to live a happy, stress-free life? Imagine the obstacles you and your family have overcome to realize that's a blessing that not many people have. It's programs like this that help kids realize they can be anything they dream of and that they'll have support along the way. Currently, according to the district website, the Ross Valley School District has approximately 1,770 students. And it's declining. What would you do if 7% of your student body couldn't afford to live in the district anymore? How many schools would you close? How many people would you lay off? I'm tired of these boilerplate responses. These are real people, real children, and real people trying to survive.
Hello, my name's Jesus, and I just wanted to give you, Hello, my name's Jesus, and I just wanted to give you the perspective of a student who has gone to the Children's Center through preschool all the way up to the end of 5th grade. And I just wanted to say that the center has helped me a lot and shaped my life. Making friends, not with just the other students, but with the staff, the other teachers. And looking back now, I cannot imagine how my life would have been without the center. And I hope you find more solutions to this problem. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Amber Pinelli, and I am a full-time single mom that moved back to Marin County after having my son. And if it weren't for the center, I would not be able to live in the community. I would not be able to be working in the community. And my son would not have the friends that he's had since he was 1 year old, and he just turned 9 on Saturday. So thank you so much.
Collaborate, learn, inspire, mentor, believe, where community inspires unlimited possibilities. Sound familiar? This is the motto of Ross Valley School District. My name is Christine Garcia Kelly, Deer Park resident with a 9-year-old child in the school district. The purported concerns and hesitation of continuing a lease do not merit an eviction. Rather, it does show limited possibilities and displays the lack of collaboration. I request that your next agenda contains this action item: discussion to sell the premises to the Children's Center, owner finance such that the mortgage equals the current rent. This is a win-win. The school district has no liability. You, the trustees, have no liability. The Children's Center can benefit from a below-market sale price due to the alleged voluminous ADA violations. And the children have a place to go. I have drafted documents for a similar sale for another nonprofit in East Bay if you want a sample of this structured transaction. Regarding the CASP, there is no law precluding a tenant from paying these compliance costs and drafting the CASP language into the lease. By the way, it came out 2 or 3 years ago. It's not a sudden law. So this discussion could have begun 2 or 3 years ago. It's time Ross Valley put their money, which was our money, where their mouth is, and collaborate with the wealth of talent around here and think of the unlimited possibilities. And if your attorney says no, it's time to get a second opinion. Thank you.
She's a tough act to follow. My name's Zoe Hunter. I'm born and raised in Fairfax. I went to Deer Park as a child. I'm a single mother, and my son goes to Children's Center, and me and so many other people will not be able to work and be part of the community. And look at this building that you guys are operating out of. It's just heart-wrenching to think that you guys just serve as an eviction notice and let so many people's lives and so many people's lives in the future be affected by your 30 seconds, but.
My name is Lisa Kanan. We're meeting in a shiny new district office filled with new furnishings and landscaping the size of 3 educational portables out front, while the adequate district office we built 20 years ago with bond dollars we may still be paying off sits mothballed right across the parking lot. This project required no community vote or input, but there was no shortage of diligence and focus to access a $5 million grant to fund it and then board approval to borrow another $500,000 to cover overrun expenses. All for a new building with no children directly served now or in the near future, and frankly, one that doesn't even allow public comment. Very well. Tonight is a perfect example of your priorities. Our tax dollars are being used to hire consultants to strong-arm a conclusion that would cause irreparable harm when they could be used to figure out how to remove obstacles in the way of an educational equity partner that needs our help. Did you convene a community conversation to study the risks and benefits of a modification of Deer Park? Did you solicit input from stakeholders and community partners? Did you seek the input of local fire and safety professionals, local funders to assess feasibility of raising funds to upgrade the site? One doesn't generally have the opportunity to witness in real time the hidden base of the iceberg that erects barriers that disproportionately harm some people, limiting their access to opportunity and well-being while privileging others. But make no mistake, what we are witnessing here are the systematic, structural, and institutional forces, the embedded systems, the bureaucracies, the regulations, the procedures, the written or unwritten policies, entrenched practices and excuses that produce and perpetuate harm to marginalized people who lack power. Some people get shiny new buildings, and other people get paid consultants that pull the rug from out from under them. I believe we can do better. This public input is a sham.
Okay, we'd like to use our 2 minutes together. Is it on? Okay. My name is Sharon Sager, my husband Brian Sager. First of all, I would like to say, why does this center not have an extended lease? I was on the board for 15 years. Our leases with them were 5, 7, 10 years during that time. So why are they on a month-to-month lease? Did you put it off so that you could have this new lobby in place so that you could deny them the location?
Yes.
Second of all, the last couple of meetings have made it clear that the attorney is hired, setting the stage to allow this board to use safety as an issue, to not renew their lease. It's unfortunate in many ways because the safety issue is about the lack of housing stability now for this program, not fire and seismic. Manor School was built at the same time as Deer Park School. It has not had any seismic upgrades. Are you worried about the kids there? White Hill is in a valley, in a common valley similar that could have a fire there. You've got 600 plus kids to leave that site. How are you planning to do that? It's time to sell this site to the Fairfax San Anselmo Children's Center. You sold this field down here for $1 to the high school district so they could have a playing field. You can sell that site to the Children's Center for $1 so they can do repairs and have that site available to them. You can also set it up so that you can retain rights to that site to have it back for $1 if they ever close the center down. Please show that you actually care about these families and do something proactive and positive instead of making them feel worried that they're going to be kicked out in 30 to 60 days.
I couldn't hear what you said, but I'll be brief. Don't worry. My name's Richard. I'm a grandparent, former board member, and the cook. And I couldn't hear, so I don't know if I'm repeating stuff, but we provide meals to these families. Not just like breakfast, lunch, and 2 snacks, but like, real food that I make. You know? And when it was shut down for COVID, we were sending meals to the family, so I know that they need these meals. And I'm really worried that if we have to move from there, the next site won't have the facilities to make the food. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Daniel Ellis. I'm a longtime resident of this community. I'm also the father of Mariana Gaidano, who spoke earlier, and is the current lead teacher in the infant center. She was, of course, an infant there herself many years ago. I think the thing that we need to remember is that these kids, the school-age kids, are district kids. They go to the district schools. The preschool kids will be district kids. They will go to district schools. The families supported there are district families. So this is a community-wide resource that deserves support from the district and actually, I feel like, should be claimed by the district as the special thing that it is. It's not just a child care center. It's an innovative child care center. It's been an innovative and cutting-edge child care center since its inception back in the 70s. It has innovated many policies that have been imitated by other child care centers throughout the nation, basically. So it should be a jewel among we've got a string of award-winning schools. Let's recognize that we have an award-winning child care center as well that stands out among child care throughout the state, basically, throughout the nation. Recognize it and claim it. And everything is fixable.
Hello, my name is Azucena Alfaro, and I work at the Children's Center for 25 years. As a parent, my two children grew up in that beautiful program. My daughter, who's 30 years old, and my son, who's 18 now. They both were blessed to be part of that wonderful program. For both of my children, the Children's Center has been their second home. As a staff member, I can say that every time that the center have to renew their lease, we have to go through this stress and fears, not only for our director, teachers, families, but also for the children. The Children's Center is a safe place for many children and families. It's a place where families feel welcome and included, a place that supports families who can't afford to pay the high cost of childcare. My question is, why do we have to go through this stress? Why we can't work together? To everyone, please help us save the Children's Center.
Hi, I'm Randy Sanchez. I attended the child care program when I was an infant toddler to 5th grade, then volunteered my hours in middle school and high school, and now I'm a teacher here for 3 years with all the kids here. These are my kids. And there's nothing that makes me more happy than to come every day, see their happy faces, and give those kids the childhood that I got with the help of the teachers that taught me. Those guys really raised me and shaped me to the man I am. I honestly never thought of myself working at a child care center, especially the one that I grew up in, but it is the best decision that I've ever made in my life. And it's the place where I met them. Everybody here is family. I don't care what blood says. I don't care what people say. Everybody here is my brother and sister. All those little kids over there are my little siblings. And I don't care about that timer. I'm going to keep talking. Because growing up there, picking those kids up every day, I don't care how much I get paid. I don't care how much it took on toll of my body. I'm going to sit there, and you are not going to take that away from me.
Hello, my name is Isela, and I'm a parent student. Since I started to go to school back in 2018, I have been always supported. I have always get the support from the Children's Center. I feel lucky that I have the chance to go to school, knowing that my children have a safe place to stay after school, something that the district can offer us, families of color and low-income families. And even they stay open during the pandemic, giving us internet, food for our kids, and then they could join their Zoom meeting every single day. During the last 3 years, I have been succeeding in my education. The most recent one is that I have the opportunity to attend to an internship to Stanford University to do a summer research in neuroscience. And this is all because of the support of the Children's Center. And I know I'm not the only one. I know many other women or low-income families, people have been succeeding because of them. If you evict the center, your talk about equity in the district will mean nothing because you will take away the only place we have for our children. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tanya Zimmering. I'm a San Anselmo parent, and my daughters are friends with many of the kids in this room. I'm just amazed by the diversity in this room, and I really think it's a shame that the lawyer who's shaping so much of this discussion was not here to look in the eyes of these families as he spoke so dispassionately about closing a center that's a lifeline to so many. A wise lawyer once told me that line up 7 lawyers, you'll get 7 different answers. I would strongly encourage you to seek additional legal advice, because this idea that you're going to be held personally responsible would scare me if I were in your shoes, but I suspect that there's other lawyers that are going to give you a different feel on that. I think the district didn't spend the money over the 50 years and that they should now, and help this center stay open if they really want to support diversity.
Hello, my name is Cassandra Morales. I grew up here and I went to Lower Brookside, Upper Brookside, White Hill, and the school formerly known as Drake. I worked at the center for 10 years in the infant program, the preschool program, and the after-school program. And I also worked at Hidden Valley as an instructional aide, a yard supervisor, and the hawk. Shh. The district's own mission statement says it has an objective to expand family involvement and community partnerships. The children who go to the center are being dropped off and picked up at your schools. Teachers in the Ross Valley School District have worked directly with teachers at the Fairfax San Anselmo Children's Center to help your students who need it the most. If this isn't a community partnership working to support our students as well as their families, I don't know what is. The children who go to the center are the children at Manor and Brookside and Hidden Valley and Wade Thomas and White Hill. They are the children at your schools who the administrators let eat in the office at lunch because they know that's what that child needs. They are the children at your schools whose parents can't pick them up at the end of the day because they are still working. So the center vans come and pick up your students and take them back to the center so they have a safe place to do their homework and to continue learning and playing while their parents finish working. The center students are Ross Valley School District students. On May 18th, an equity update was reported by SURE, Stand Up for Racial Equity. This is a program by the Ross Valley School District. I know, and I'm sorry, it's going to happen. That's okay, I'll keep talking, that's fine. The group hopes to create an affinity group for parents of color and an affinity group for white parents who are invested in anti-racism. I'm very curious what SURE has to say about this situation as a group who promotes racial equity awareness and practices in the Ross Valley School District community. If you close down the center, you will be losing many of the families that SURE was designed to advocate for. SURE also stated in its update that it is helping to support the Ross Valley School District efforts to bring racial equity into the classroom. If you close down the center, you are hurting a very specific part of your community, a community you are fighting so hard to bring together. You truly couldn't do more to tear it apart. Please find a way to build a partnership. These families are your families are their families. We are one community. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Shauna. I just graduated from Manor, and the center means a lot to me. And most of all, the center, we make memories, but we also make friends. Bye.
I'm Laura Brainerd. I'm an independent reading tutor, and I get grants for free or low-cost tutoring for kids who attend the Children's Center. And I've seen over the years how important it is for everybody and all the families that go there. They're the backbone of our economy. They're working in the service industry. They're doing construction. They're doing farming work, and we couldn't survive without them. And I don't want to see Marin County become even more white for just white rich people. And this is like a gem that you guys should be trying to find every way to support instead of trying to shut it down, which I don't trust what you're saying or what you're doing. So I I remember during the beginning of the pandemic, these families had no jobs suddenly, and it was the Children's Center that was the hub that saved their lives. They did a GoFundMe project, and they raised $32,000 so that everybody could pay their rent and get diapers and have food. And all the people joined together and made food every single day in the kitchen, so anybody that needed food could come. So I can't believe you're even thinking of shutting this place down. And from what I've heard, any alternatives you're suggesting, alternative locations are not big enough and are not going to work. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Carl Brown. I'm a Fairfax resident. I didn't sign a card, so I'm just going to speak. You know, I recently moved to Fairfax with my family from Oakland. And I didn't want to move to Marin County because it's the only county in the Bay Area where brown people aren't welcome. And most of my family don't look like me. My daughter doesn't look like me. My wife doesn't look like me. And so I've been going to the school and bugging Heidi and saying, hey, let us in. Because none of the other places that we go for childcare, there are people that look like my daughter, that look like my wife, my sister, my mother-in-law. So when this developed, I just said, Heidi, how can I help? And I feel so small because I see, and the reason that I spoke up in the meeting is I saw the way this was developing. Kicking these softball questions to this hired lawyer who doesn't live in the county, doesn't live here, isn't building this community, and it just felt stacked, right? We see this all over the country. So I would hope the Bay Area and Marin County would show up in a different way. Thanks.
My name is Soren Rubayo, and I go to Manor School. I go to Deer Park after I go to school, and I really like Deer Park. I really like playing with my friends, and some of my friends are called James and Darwin. And why are you guys trying to close my school? Our school!
Hello, my name is Yolanda Barahona, and I'm coming here to talk as a mother and as a grandmother. My daughter came to this center when she was a child. And now my grandson can come here. I'm talking about community. I'm talking about families. I'm talking about generation in this children's center. I want to come here to hear you are boring to keep our family together. And I come here to hear you give more budget for many other children's centers like this children's center with high quality education, forming human beings with values. Forming this community, we are the workforce or force works here in Marin, and for me it's sad he can have the quality education my daughter and another kids here who are growing in this family, in this children's center. Please choose the right. Choose for us. Choose for the community. Choose for others. Choose for everybody here. We are talking to the bottom of our heart. Thank you.
My name is Tori Chappelle, and I've been a resident, a parent, and a teacher in the community for 34 years. And in the words of this little guy, the center is a school. They're a school, and they're not a traditional school, but they teach the qualities that all the schools around here would benefit from teaching more of. They teach community, they teach determination, they teach persistence, and they teach resiliency, as you've heard from a lot of the graduates here tonight. And they are also a school during the pandemic. They were the only school open, and children were there. I saw it. These teachers who are paid little to nothing were their teachers during the pandemic and made it possible for children to learn and do their Zoom learning there. And just a word about safety, that safety is not just about physical safety, it's about emotional and psychological safety. If this school is closed and these children are evicted, their safety on a much bigger scale will be impacted. And liability, besides financial liability, if this closure were to happen, the moral and ethical liability that would rest on the shoulders of many in this district would be far greater than any financial liability you could endure.
Hi guys, my name is Vesta Torres and I am a teacher in the school age program at the Fairfax San Anselmo Children's Center. I have a very deep connection with the Children's Center. My entire family has been located at this center since it opened at the Deer Park School. Everyone, both my sisters, myself, both my parents attended there either as teachers or as students. I was a student. That's my daughter right there. Every single day we wake up, we look forward to going to the center. My question to you is, what is stopping our community, our board of directors for Ross Valley School District from being able to come up with the funds, seeing as we live in one of the wealthiest counties in California? I mean, the only problem is not that we can't find the money, it's that maybe you guys don't want to put in the effort. We will do what we can. We just need your help. So, thank you.
I see you all over there, okay?
Come on, in the mic, baby girl.
My name is Rosalind Parrish Ferris.
What do you want to say about the Children's Center?
I don't want it to close because it makes me learn a lot. And
you love it, huh?
it's my favorite place to be.
Good. That's perfect. Lisa, thank you. You all done? Okay. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, board. My name is Elizabeth Clark. I'm an early childhood mental health consultant here in Marin County. And the Children's Center was always an exemplary site. We all wanted to be there because they had the best staff, the best students, the best parents, the best director. I can't say enough about the site. But what I wanted to say tonight is more of a kind of a concern or a question for Terry, and I'm sorry that I don't get to ask him this directly.
Hey, you guys, can we please quiet down? We cannot hear them at the front. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm a soft speaker.
I'll try. I just believe that if you have... my name is Elizabeth Clark, and I am an early childhood mental health consultant here in Marin County. And I worked at sites, mostly Marin Head Start, but I knew that the Children's Center was an exemplary site because of the parents, because of the students, because of the community, because of the director. Heidi's amazing. The teachers, I can't say enough. But the real reason that I decided to speak tonight was not to give my personal story. This is more of a question for Terry, if he's still on the line. If your intentions are true, Terry, why aren't you here? Why aren't you here looking at all these faces? There are 300 people here at least that are all just in favor of keeping this site. If your intentions are true and you are looking out for this community, I think you should be here. I think you need to see this. I think you need to see the site. I think you need to be here when the children are there, when the teachers are there. And then I just have one last question, which is, I'm a little bit confused, and I'm not like an attorney, obviously, but can you please explain why it is being designated an education site where it does not serve the site in terms of the building codes, but it is not considered an education site in terms of getting grants, the grants that Ross Valley School District might pass along? I'm just a little confused, and I get confused easily. So if you could please answer that question, I'd greatly appreciate it, and I think the community would too.
Can I go? Hi, my name is Shirley Calderon. I am one of the mothers of the Fairfax Children's Center. My daughter goes there. She's been there for like a year now. When she got out of preschool, I didn't have a place where to put her, and I was scrambling and looking, and everywhere I called it was just super expensive or didn't have room or anything. So I reached out to them, and then they opened the doors, and I'm truly grateful because they have been a lifesaver to me. I'm able to go to work, and I know that when I drop her off there, or when she gets out of school, she gets to them, then I know that she's safe. You know, I can email or text, the teachers, and I know that she's there and all that. And I hope you guys can find it in your heart. So I hope you guys can find a solution to help them, or help the community, because it's important for all of us. It's important. Yeah. And also, if it's about money or something like that, or if there's repairs to be done, I think all of us parents can help chip in or something. But I think the school board should be responsible for that. Yeah.
Sorry about that. My name's Larry Bragman. I'm speaking as a resident of Fairfax. I'm also the representative for Division 3 of the Marin Water District. So I'm speaking for myself, but the information hopefully is coming from my agency, so I would like to get it in the record. I'm speaking to address the fire flow concerns at the Fairfax San Anselmo Children's Center that were mentioned in the Marin IJ article of June 5th. I had a conflicting meeting. I'm here now after the meeting is done. Marin Municipal Water District replaced and enlarged the water main servicing the center in 2013. Our records indicate the line delivers 100 pounds PSI, which is more than adequate. Normal household use is 60 PSI. District GIS records indicate the nearest hydrant is on Myrna, where it turns on Porteous, and that has 105 PSI. The notes regarding the hydrant at the site indicate that the last model run was over 1,600 gallons per minute with 20 PSI residual pressure, meaning the model indicates the hydrant can deliver 1,600 gallons per minute and the line will remain pressurized. The bottom line is that the fire flow provided by our district is adequate for fire protection for the existing use of the premises. The center provides a vital service by providing subsidized childcare and related services. It is, in fact, an incubator for the next generation of leadership in Marin County. Any decision about this vital institution should be based on fact and in collaboration with the other public agencies like Marin Water that are responsible for its safety. And thank you very much for letting me run over.
Hey guys, my name is Rylan Morgan. I am alumni of the Children's Center. My son went to the Children's Center. And everything that you guys heard here was great, but there's one part of my story that hasn't been addressed yet. My son was severely abused growing up by his mother. I'd get him back with like 2nd-degree burns in his eyes, and he was so traumatized that he couldn't speak. There was a point in time where I was the only single dad on welfare in the county, and the county gave me $2,000 a month to get childcare. He was kicked out of every daycare, including this building that we're standing in, right? The Children's Center is the only place that took him in, got him into Easter seals, taught him how to talk when he couldn't talk, and provided me with the ability to go to school, go to work, and know that he was taken care of. Drove him to school, fed him, and all that stuff, right? My kid was tortured, and he got booted out of everything. So please don't take away, they had so much experience working with low-income people that they knew what to do. So don't do it, dude.
My name's Peyton and my mom's name's Paula, and my dad died. So I'm just here to tell everybody that my dad died, and I know how much Deer Park has been supporting me, and my friends have been supporting me, but I know how much my mom's been supporting me too. And that's all.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Matias Gomez Rodriguez, and the Children's Center community has been like a huge family to me, and I've had a lot of good memories there, and I don't want to lose more memories, so I just don't want to lose my family. So yeah, thank you guys.
Hi, my name's Brian Long, one of the after-school teachers for the Children's Center. I've been in various programs throughout the center for the past 8 years when I moved out here from Chicago, Illinois. The reason why I love this place so much is because I grew up in a similar place back home, and I know the impact that having positive relationships with as many people as possible in this community is what allows these children to thrive. And this... This place has seen me through 2 degrees. I came out here to study at Dominican University. I just got my master's in counseling psych. And one of the things that is hit home in my program is that adverse childhood experiences are detrimental to these children and their lives and their well-being. And I can't imagine a bigger adverse childhood experience than taking the center away from these children and the community that the Children's Center serves. I think back to the pandemic and the resources that we provided, Richard cooking meals, us providing telehealth services in terms of providing lesson plans, helping the schools, supporting the schools. And I can't imagine this community without it. I can't imagine being in this community without it. So yeah, that's my piece. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Eva, and I am able to live in Marin because of the Children's Center. I am a preschool teacher. I've taken care of your children for very low wages. I've worked very hard, and the Children's Center has picked up my children after school when I was too busy working, taking care of yours. And I owe them everything. They have given us so much, and I urge you to come up with a solution. I heard Sharon earlier say some stuff that was really interesting. I urge you to get another lawyer. That lawyer, I've heard of him before. He didn't even show his face to talk to us. He was a recording. I feel that you can come up with a solution. This is Marin County. This is California, the 5th largest economy in the world. And if we could brainstorm together, we could come up with some solutions. I believe in you. I believe in us as a community. We are all connected and we can make this work. Don't give up on us. You will be giving up on the jewel in your crown. This is the center. This is the heart. It's been here for 50 years and we have given you money and rent for 50 years and you've never maintained their property, your property. We've rented from you and nothing has come to us when it comes to like repairs or maintaining stuff, appreciation, none of it. It's now when it's come down to these fire codes at every school. Tell me White Hill has more than 2 ways out of their school. Tell me, they don't. There's the access road, all of this fire hydrant, all of that stuff can be fixed. I urge you to care for the center and for the people who care for the community.
Good evening, David Finan. Shelley, I just want to start by saying, as a white woman with power and agency that works at Marin Promise, the fact that you can't give these people 2 minutes to comment is absolutely incredible. I have a couple questions. Did the district leadership speak to First 5 Marin, the Marin Organizing Committee, the Marin Child Care Commission, the Marin Child Care Council, Community Action Marin, regarding the effect of this possible decision on the ecosystem of child care in Marin? This isn't just a San Anselmo Fairfax issue if this decision is made based on your Southern California attorney. Have you talked to Katie Rice? Have you talked to the town of San Anselmo leadership? Have you talked to the town of Fairfax leadership? The answer is no. This building houses district administrators and staff. Look at this building. Does the irony not strike you? That people of color and poor people that have been underserved are here asking for a chance to have a center, and adults come to this building every day. $5.5 million building. That is ridiculous. Well, that building sits empty. And Wesley, we were told by the board you were on that would be rented. It's covered in cobwebs. You should be ashamed. Thank you.
Hard to follow a lot of impassioned speeches tonight. I'm going to be very simple. Good evening. My name is Eric Schwinninger, and I have been connected with the Fairfax San Anselmo Children's Center since I began as a volunteer back in 1994. I would like to ask the Ross Valley School District Board of Directors to describe to us the entire general public what makes a good quality community partner. Have you asked yourselves, who are the different stakeholders that might have an interest in forming partnerships in this major decision? What community partners need to be in this conversation? Really what David just said just now. And are you doing your due diligence in finding the best solution for us all? I hope that you are. I'm not in any way saying you're not. I'm just hoping that is the direction you're going to be taking. I think that's really important. Who might be willing to join the community collaboration in finding a safe and equitable solution for us all? I think there's a whole bunch. And I follow David, who I think really just nailed it pretty well. And will the community support the decisions that are formed by this partnership? And I think that's extremely important. You all here in this room are making this giant decision that will directly affect right now, approximately 90 families, 24 staff, an entire community that has been developing over the last 49 years. And frankly, it's disconcerting the way it's been going so far. So it's concerning. So again, please do your due diligence on this.
Hi, I'm Grace.
She just wanted to say, please don't close the center.
Please don't go. Hi, I'm a student at the Children's Center. My name is Natasha, and I appreciate this Children's Center a lot.
Hi, I'm Wendy Nestle. Hi, Marie. Hi, Ryan. Hi, Shelley. Hi, Marcy. Hi, Rachel. And I don't know you, Wesley, but hello as well. And everybody here. You guys, we've known about the Field Act and that building for a long time. There's been other groups that have tried to move in, so that's nothing new. What's new is that the Children's Center was going to try and get grants to improve the property for things that needed to be done. You guys, it's been 50 years, and $6 million over 50 years is $120,000 a year. You guys have been slumlords to this Children's Center and the people here because they've never asked for anything more, and they finally have asked for something. And you guys are so scared to spend that money and come up with it. It's really scary that you can't see that if you evict diversity in our community, by evicting all the Children's Center people here, that will be on your backs. That'll be on your hearts. You won't be able to sleep at night. We can come up with this money. And you guys, look into it. I know that you're worried about your own personal liability. It's not going to happen. They're using you as pawns in order to get rid of this group and to do something with that property because they're scared to spend $6 million. Please think about this and come up with creative solutions together.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Just for the record, I'm Heidi Tomsky, the Executive Director of Fairfax and Anselmo Children's Centers. I'm just going to read what I wrote really quickly to try to stay within the minute. I have to say I'm curious as to why 199 Porteous has been on the closed session for so many times. I counted 11 times between July 2020 and December 2021. What has been discussed? I mean, it's hard to believe that there's nothing that has come out of those discussions that we couldn't have had a conversation about. The other 2 times that it was on closed session was when I called Marcy and asked for a letter of intent to make improvements, which of course I would have never done if I knew it was going to land us here. I have to ask, what is going on? Is it true that Terry Tao is really the same attorney the district used to fight the charter school? I hope it's not. It's what I've been being told, and it feels not good given that I have been promoting good working relationships with everybody here for many, many years. I also wonder why. First of all, I did not attend the 2 sessions, and that's my bad. I could have been continuing to look on the open agendas, and I didn't. But typically, we've gotten a phone call from Marcy's assistant, not to blame any staff, but that has been the established habit. So again, it's still my responsibility that I didn't look. I am curious, if I were there, I would have asked Terry Tao for the documentation right away. I was really surprised that knowing the professionals that you guys are, that you didn't ask for documentation. So that I would have asked that, and I'm sorry that I'm being judgmental. Yes, the center has been afforded reasonable rent from the district, and we know that. We've had discussions about that since 2019. It's been brought to our attention. Sorry, I lost my spot. We began meeting with staff and board members back in 2019 when you brought up moving us to Manor School. And we respectfully met with you guys in good faith. And I know we all got caught up in the pandemic. It impacted everybody here. And we thought that we were still on good terms. I'm not going to stop. I'm sorry. I know I'm being disrespectful of your time. But I come to find out from Chris when Pete asked the question, Manor's not even available anymore. You never had the decency to inform us of that. That I'm shocked for, because again, you guys have always been so professional and respectful. I'm just shocked that that's the way that you guys have decided. It's hard for me to think that there's not a hidden agenda. I don't want to believe that in my heart, but I'm getting a lot of feedback that there's got to be a hidden agenda. So I hope that's not it. And I would want you to be able to promote that it's not that. And like I said, I know with our conversations were about us not paying market rent. And we were willing to pay a higher rent, but we never heard back from y'all. And again, I know that we were all in a pandemic. I also know, as has been mentioned before, that I know it wasn't you guys, but the district, the entity, did sell a piece of property for $1 to another entity to benefit children. I want to give you a quick picture. I'm sorry. I really, you know what? I'm going to keep going. If you guys, I will keep going. So please, everybody, be quiet so I can keep going. The picture of early care and education, there are over 1,000 children currently in subsidized childcare in Marin County. Fairfax San Anselmo Children's Center serves 100 of those children and their family. That's 10% of the subsidized childcare that we serve at that location. You guys are a part of that. You're helping that happen. There are over 350 children still on the county-wide waiting list waiting for childcare. We're going to add another 100 to it. I'm sorry. I'm not going to shut up. I'm not going to stop. We have nationally, there has been an 11% decrease in childcare throughout our nation. And Marin has lost 5% of their childcare. There is a shortage of infant and school-age care in the county as identified by Marin Child Care Commission and their master report, which our County Board of Supervisors has adopted. Marin County has dedicated $1 million to support childcare, particularly around sustainability and access. Childcare is a real need for all families. I'm not just talking about low-income families. It makes no sense to be dismantling early care and education programs, especially when we saw how important childcare has been during the last 2 years of COVID. I know, Shirley, you're doing your job, but I don't know why you keep telling me to be quiet. Keep going. During COVID, the center happily supported, I work with kids and I have a big voice. The center happily supported children and families when schools were doing remote learning. We worked with teachers. We worked with administrators. We're the ones that help the families keep their children educated. The reality is we meet a critical need in the community and we serve a specific niche of families and children. I am not going to apologize for who we serve and what we do. And I don't need to show this board that we believe in equity because you already know that's what we do there. But equity, when successful, does, we are on a power struggle and I'm not going to be quiet. But we are right now because you keep telling me to be quiet. I am the executive director of the agency that you are trying to put to bed. Now listen, I have one more sentence.
Go, do it.
My goodness gracious. Wow.
Everyone would give up their time so she could speak. Anyway.
Jeez. But equity, when successful, does not take resources from one person to give to another person. Equity brings diversity of ideas and resources together. And that's what we're about. And it's very unfortunate that what is happening is exactly what you two that were on that ad hoc committee said you didn't want to have happen. You didn't want it to play out in the community. And guess what? Here we are. Thank you.
Let's go. Is it over or it's done?
Okay, we are back from a short 5-minute break. I had not closed the public comment period when we took the break. We have a couple more people who want to make public comments, so we're going to go ahead and give them 1 minute so that everyone who wants to speak can. So you have 1 minute to go ahead and make a public comment.
I've lived in Marin County for over 30 years, in Fairfax and in West Marin. I have known many children and many families over the years that have been, their lives have been supported and changed. And these are the people that make the fabric of this county. I've lived in this county a long time. My concern is what's happening with an agenda that's going on all over the country and what we're seeing in Marin County, which is the buying up of land. West Marin has become an elite outpost. Marin is becoming more and more white and less diverse, less of the fabric of humanity, and the values are going down the drain. I want to know, what are the corporate interests pushing this behind the scenes, secretively? Who's offering to buy the land? What kind of building are they proposing going up in that area? I want to know if there's something going on behind this. Ryan, you're shaking your head, but I want to know if there's some corporate interest with big money behind this pushing things, and I want accountability and transparency, and we are going to be following that. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ivy Levy, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist working in Marin County. I live in Fairfax, and I'm also a parent of a 13-year-old daughter. I want to say what I've seen tonight is about 300 people attending, and I've been very inspired by what I've heard and the deep commitment that this school brings forth tonight. The sure work that I've learned about on the part of the district seems to be completed and done in such a wonderful way at the center. I've heard ideas tonight that seem wonderful and really worth looking into. So I really hope that you'll look into the idea of selling to the center in some way, thinking about the water pressure hydrant issues that were corrected by a rep from the water. I would like for you to get more consultation. It seems very baffling that there's just one pretty conservative lawyer who's helped shut down the sites for and other issues that have come up with the district in the past, and relying solely on him. This is going to be on our backs. And the last thing that I will say is just the obvious that people can't hear when they're listening to this recording, is that we have a white presenting board of trustees. I don't know if you identify as white, but when I look around, we are white presenting, and almost all of the petitioners tonight were people of color. I just think we have to get with the times. Thank you.
Megan Arnault, and I'm on the board at the Fairfax San Anselmo Children's Center. I was a teacher there. It was my first teaching position right out of college. And then I returned back there and was a teacher in the infant center. I've also been a chef there. My 3 children have gone throughout the children's center. And I think my biggest thing that I was thinking about tonight was that you guys were told that you will be liable. There's liability there for you. If that's really a case, what I think you should do is step down, because you're liable for all of these families and their well-being and what's going to happen to them. It's like, this is not at all what this is. So if that's a big concern, think about that. Thanks.
I will
Bring it back up to the board for further discussion or questions. Again, this is not a decision or an action item. So I'm going to bring this back up to the board. Do we still have Terry on the phone?
We do.
Okay. And we still have Terry on the phone. Is there anyone who would like
Is there some way we can close the door?
Let's say we close the door. Because we're having a hard time hearing.
Terry, it's Wesley speaking. What are your recommended next steps?
I do believe that we need to spend at least another meeting with the child care center. And the purpose for that meeting is really to address what their plan was, because during our previous meeting, it had been indicated that they had some interest in trying to seek grants or seek funding or seek some way in order to stay at the center. I believe that that does qualify as one of the methodologies that works with Government Code Section 830.6, and it's worth exploring. I do recognize that there is a fairly significant number, but in the big scheme of things, it may or may not be a significant number. So, but I do believe that it's worthwhile to explore. It cannot be an open date. It cannot be just we're going to keep exploring it for 2 or 3 years. There is a case, because this was one of the questions that I heard. There is a case of relevance to this, which is one that you may remember. It is, if you remember, there was an earthquake in the late 90s in Paso Robles. And that earthquake resulted in 2 people dying because the building collapsed. The building was actually in the middle of redesign for earthquake repairs. And the earthquake happened just prior to the end date when the city of Paso Robles required all buildings to be seismically upgraded. It was just bad timing with regard to when the earthquake occurred. Had the earthquake occurred a little later, then the seismic repairs would have been made, and presumably there would have been some protections for the fact that the repairs were made. The case is called Myrick versus Mastagni. It's a 2010 case, 185 Cal. 4th, 1082. That case addresses the situation where you basically stop either your reasonable attempts to try to repair or your reasonable attempts to try to seek funding. Usually they both go hand in hand. Mm-hmm. If there is that stoppage where you have the gap, then you fall outside of the protections of Government Code Section 830.6, and then you have a liability situation again. So it is important to essentially keep moving down the path of trying to seek repairs and seek funding. If we're not going to do those two, that's what leads me to the conclusion that it may be necessary to not have anybody in the center because of the safety issues that would the children would be subject to and the staff would be subject to. So that's the law that that I saw. I also heard a comment about liability is very rare. I don't think I deal with it. From the law standpoint, it's not a matter of whether it's rare or not rare. It's a liability issue for the board. So I think that is something that we really can't work that way. It's a liability issue, and it's a liability issue that could go beyond the amount of the JPA coverage, which is the pooled insurance coverage that the district has available to it. So it is important to make sure that you've got all of the liability pieces covered. I think if I remember correctly, our follow-up meeting is on the
21st.
You guys remember?
Yes, March 20th. I'm sorry, June 21st.
Follow up with.
Yeah, it's on June 21st.
Fairfax Senate Summer Children's Center.
Okay.
Yeah. So our meeting is on the 21st, I believe at 8 a.m. I actually may need to move that because of some other reasons, but we'll talk about it. It can happen that day, just maybe not at 8 a.m. So I think that that's our next step, which is to have the meeting. When we did have the meeting previously on the June 8th, I did emphasize that we needed to have some idea as to what it is that the child care center's solutions were, what it is that they were looking at as far as funding. It is feasible, it's possible to do, but I also don't want to hope for something that is not going to materialize. We can't work with that. So those are my suggestions as next steps. I do believe that probably at a future board meeting, and my suggestion is a board meeting in July, I would have to report back on how those discussions went. I would suggest setting a time period so that we know where it is that we're headed, and if the child care center can pull everything together, then fantastic, we can make that work. If the child care center cannot pull everything together, then I think we would really seriously need to be looking at a end date. So that's where I am with it.
Terry, this is Shelley. One other question with respect to the water pressure issue and what you had mentioned earlier about the different hydrants and what we heard in the meeting. Is there somebody that can come out and look at those hydrants sooner than later so we can get that?
Yeah, we're working on that.
We're working on that already to get that? Okay.
Yeah, that was actually really good information. I jotted down, I think the person's name was Larry. I had a little bit of trouble hearing everything, but I tried to jot down all of their information. I thought it was extremely useful information. And the question is going to be from that Myrna standpipe all the way over to the private hydrant, if that also carries the 100 pounds of pressure. So if we can measure that is actually very valuable information. It would save a lot of money with regards to the need to upgrade the lines. So, and I do think that we want to know that information as part of the equation.
Okay.
Terry, this is Ryan. I'll copy that information. I have it, and I'll send it to Marcy so she can get that accurately as it was presented.
Chris?
Terry, this is Chris. I just have one question. I'm sorry. In relation to the 2010 bond, I did look it up, and it looks like it's a 55%, which should be a Prop 39. Would the Deer Park have to have been listed in the bond language in order for the district to have spent dollars on that?
Yes, you would need to specifically list the Deer Park site. You would want to specifically identify what the issues are that you're trying to address. You'll see that under Government Code Section 830.6, there's actually a discussion about seeking funds. So what you want to do in order to continue the protections of Government Code Section 830.6 is you would want to seek those funds and make sure that that bond measure is earmarked for this particular purpose. That earmarking is actually key to addressing the liability issue so that you continue to have design immunity. That design immunity is for the governmental purposes as school district is the equivalent of no exposure to lawsuits. If you have design immunity, which means you received a DSA approval That DSA approval actually has some language to it. The language says you've met all building code requirements, you've met all ADA requirements. That means that your building is considered safe, it's immune from lawsuits, there are no trip and fall lawsuits, there are no personal injury lawsuits, there are no lawsuits. There's no ability for anybody to seek any form of liability against the district on a building that has been Field Act approved until or unless there's an identification of a potentially unsafe condition. And at that point in time, you need to do your investigation. So that is what we're doing here on Deer Park. I will mention very quickly, and I know it's a little off topic, there was a mention of White Hill and Manor. Those two buildings both have all of their DSA approvals, which means they have full compliance with Government Code Section 830.6. And you have DSA that has reviewed and identified the fire conditions. You have state fire marshal approval of those sites, and also similar letters from the state fire marshal on their complete approval of the sites. That's been updated since the last modernization that occurred at those sites.
I guess the reason I was asking that, I know that the information you just provided would be moving forward, but I was thinking in relation to bond dollars that have already been fully expended, if we had wanted to spend those dollars on Deer Park, it would have to have been approved under the bond language.
That is correct. You have to earmark those funds.
Okay, in 2010.
Yeah.
2010.
May I ask a question?
Yeah, there's actually a case on it. It's actually, I think it's called Friends of Hermosa Beach against Hermosa Beach City Unified School District. It actually talks about it. There's another case, which is, again, San Diego Unified, talks about that the language has to specifically mention that particular project.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other board? Any other questions or comments? This is certainly not going to be the last time that we talk about this.
A lot to digest.
Did you have any? No.
Nope, nothing else at this time.
All right. Okay.
Okay, what's next?
Yeah, Terry, this is Ryan. I had one more small clarification in my notes that I forgot that may not have been covered tonight. When we talked about the modernization upgraded effort of $6.5 million, that does not include architectural drawing, specs, time, soft build stuff too, right? Is that correct?
It does not. It is only the construction cost. The architectural fees and everything else is roughly about 20%. So you're going to have architectural fees, engineering fees, DSA, and other fees, including local grading approvals and various connection fees. That's usually about 20%. Their number is going to be pretty close to the high sevens, like 7.8 to $8 million.
Okay, that's good to have on record. Thank you.
Looking back.
Okay.
All right.
Well, the room is empty, so I would thank everybody for being here, but they've already left. So I thank them if they're listening and appreciate people coming here and asking their questions and giving us their input. And we will continue the discussion, as we mentioned before. We're still in this information and discovery phase, and we will do our due diligence and get the answers that we need to make the best decision that we can on behalf of our community.
Also.
All right. Moving on to item number F2, which is recommended approval of resolution 102122, which is resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Ross Valley School District authorizing the issuance and sale of a 2022 general obligation refunding bond in an aggregate principal amount of not to exceed $17,500,000. And I will ask the staff for a presentation on this.
Yes, we actually do have a presentation on it. I'd like to welcome Dale Scott and Joe Crump. Joe will be actually doing the presentation this evening. And what this is refinancing the 2010 GO bonds that we have outstanding. And it would be in lowering the interest rates and the amount that is repaid by the taxpayers on their property tax bills. It would provide no additional savings to the Ross Valley School District, but all of those savings would accrete directly back to the taxpayers. And so what we're asking you this evening is to approve the resolution that would allow us to move forward and save the taxpayers those dollars. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Crump.
All right, thank you, Chris. My name is Joe Crump from Dale Scott & Company. As Chris mentioned, that's Dale in the audience.
Hi Dale, good to see you again.
As Chris gave a very good introduction, so just to recap, the resolution before you tonight is to approve the issuance of bonds to refinance the district's 2010 Series A and B bonds. This refinancing has the potential to lower interest rates on a portion of the district's outstanding bonds, potentially saving the taxpayers a significant amount of money. And what we're going to do is, as we go through this presentation, is show you 3 separate alternatives for how we can structure this refinancing. So hopefully that will be informative.
I don't want to interrupt your flow, but how long will your presentation be?
Fairly short, I think. Probably 5 minutes.
Oh, okay. All right.
So it'll be quick.
Just as a matter of procedure, I'm going to make a motion to continue our board meeting after 10:30 p.m. So that if it does go beyond 8 minutes, your presentation won't be interrupted.
Okay, sounds great.
We have a motion and a second, so I'm going to go ahead and do a vote for that. Leslie?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
Marie? Aye. Rachel?
Aye.
And Shelley? Aye. We can take a pause afterwards and look at our agenda.
Yeah, exactly.
So I just want to make sure we don't have to interrupt you to do that.
Perfect.
Thank you.
So before we turn to the refinancing itself, just to provide some context, what we have before you right now is tax rate projections for the district's outstanding bonds. So you could see we're assuming a 3.5% assessed valuation growth rate, which is fairly conservative. So in orange, you can see tax rates for the district's 1999 authorization bonds, and in blue, tax rates for the 2010 authorization bonds. So we think it's kind of important to show these are all the tax rates for the district right off the bat, and then we'll show in the next few slides how the different alternatives for the refinancing can affect these tax rates going forward. So the first alternative is what we call a proportional savings structure. So if you look on the graph on the left-hand side, you see the same overall structure that we saw earlier, but we're sort of breaking it down differently. So instead of showing you the different authorizations, now we're highlighting the refinancing bonds, the refunding bonds in blue. And then if you see, it's kind of narrow in this slide, but the small green bars on the top, that represents the taxpayer savings. So in this scenario, it's pretty straightforward. We are just taking the savings all throughout the life of the bond over the next 20 years. And it's a bit difficult to see, but if you look in the blue box, the small blue box on the left-hand side, you can see that the projected tax rate savings per 100,000 assessed valuation over the life of the financing is about $26. There's a lot of numbers on the right-hand side in that box, but the one to focus on is the one highlighted in yellow. This scenario provides for a total dollar savings of about $2.7 million. So moving on to alternative 2, this is a different way to approach the refinancing, where in this scenario, all of the savings occur on the back end. So you can see, essentially, we're shortening the term of repayment. That results in a lot more savings, 3.6 million. But as you can see from the graph, there's no effect until 2041. So current taxpayers aren't going to see that until much farther down the line. And the final alternative is sort of the opposite approach, where we are taking the savings as soon as possible. So this approach has a somewhat lower total tax rate savings, 2.2 million. However, it has a significant tax impact on the taxpayers in the short term. So that with this scenario, you will see the most impact in the next few years. So just to recap, alternative one, if we go back quickly, this is taking the savings, stretching them over the life of the financing. Alternative two is a backloaded savings structure where there's no effect for several years, but then by shortening the term, you get a lot of savings. And finally, the front-loaded savings structure where the savings all accrue over the next 5 or 6 years. So moving on to the next few slides, we just have a brief overview of the financing team. So municipal advisor, Dale Scott and Company. Bond counsel is Dennis Wolliver Kelly, and the underwriter of the bonds is Oppenheimer. And finally, in terms of timing, we project that we will be able to lock in interest rates probably sometime in mid-July, so about a month from now. And assuming everything, the board approves the resolution tonight, the entire financing process should be finalized in early August. So that concludes the presentation, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Are we supposed to make a decision around the scenario 1, 2, and 3, getting some recommendation? What's the ask here?
That's just showing you type of things that we look at when we're structuring the sale of the bonds, because you don't have to spread it out evenly. And it does have an impact over multiple years, and you saw that the way it's structured right now, you've got large amounts and then they drop down. Some of that is some of the bonds come off, some of it is just the way they're structured. But really what we're asking is just the authorization to approve it.
To proceed.
When does that decision get made then? If we authorize to move forward on it, then at what point at what point and what are the criteria that you use to make that decision?
We're looking at what saves the taxpayers the most money effectively, and so when you look at it, the amount on the one that is all at the end has the highest dollar amount savings. The problem is it's a net present value figure, and so if you look at all of those different slides, each one of them has the same amount of savings in terms of net present value. So we'll probably go with either the one where you see the savings up front or the one that's spread. It would not be something that we would look at to push at the end. We just wanted to make sure that the governing board knew that was an option. But ultimately, it's something that the district administration would work with them.
My only other question is, could you talk a little bit about this process and those choices? Should we want to do another bond at a later date? How does that consideration get put into this?
That's a really good question. If you're looking at potentially going out for a general obligation bond in the future, what you want to do is try and lower some of those costs now rather than take them at the end. Because then that helps with your sale.
Release the burden. Front load the burden off of the people and before you throw them.
Goes back to your two first options, like two options, beginning or spread.
Front load or spread it out.
And so you would either front load it.
It's easier to sell it if you're giving them back the front part of it before you take it back.
What is our current rating?
The current rating, I believe that is AA.
This wouldn't affect our rating, would it?
No, I mean it's good. There's no downside to doing it, but there wouldn't be a significant material effect on the rating.
Right, and if we did, for whatever reason, decide we wanted to go out on a bond in the next year or two, doing this restructuring wouldn't affect that. I think that might have been related to what was just asked.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't generally impact it because what ends up happening is the rating agencies will end up looking at our total financial picture. And so they'll be pulling all of our financials, including the general fund. But the funny thing is that these are ad valorem taxes, meaning that they're based upon property tax values. So it's not funded by district general funds. And so it's one of those weird things where they're looking at something that really doesn't relate to the ability to pay it back. And really, when you start looking at the ability to pay it back, what are your estimates in terms of your property tax increases versus what has historically happened? And one of the things that I really value with Dale Scott and his company is that he's pretty conservative on those numbers. You notice that he was projecting 3.5%.
Yeah, just it's conservative.
It's very conservative for the Ross Valley School District. We for next year, the numbers coming from Marin County are in excess of 7%. So what that does is help with those numbers, because the worst thing you can do as a school district as well for the community is tell them it's going to cost them, say, $30 per $100,000 with your estimates, and then the property tax rates come in substantially lower, and then as a result of that, you end up having to bump up that amount above the 30, and so that's one of the.
That's not a good surprise to me.
Yeah, that's a bad surprise.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, thanks for bringing this forward.
So the action to be taken is to approve the resolution authorizing to move forward on the.
Yes.
That's a recommendation.
Yes, it is.
Well, I'll move approval of the resolution.
And I second.
All right. So we have motion and a second, and we'll go with the vote. Wesley?
Aye.
Marie?
Aye.
Ryan? Aye. Rachel?
Aye.
And Shelley? Aye. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
And
Thank you, gentlemen.
the taxpaying
Thank you for
community of our
Thank
school
you.
district appreciate us being good fiduciaries and getting them.
Sorry we couldn't move you up.
What time did you arrive?
Right at the very beginning. 6?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming.
Good night, gentlemen. Thanks, Chris.
Can we do the agenda?
And then for our listening audience, I just want to let everyone know that we've got one person, one hold on here in our audience. And so as far as public comment goes, the public comment on every single item is more than likely going to look a little bit different because we just have one person to acknowledge whether they want to do public comment or not. So, all right. And if there is public comment on that last one, I looked over. I did look over, and I was. I didn't see that there was going to be so. So we're on to number 3, which is recommended adoption of the local control and accountability plan for 2022-23. We have our staff report on this.
Yeah. So as we all know, our LCAP is a 3-year plan that describes the goals, actions, services, and expenditures to support positive student outcomes that address state and local priorities. And our Ross Valley School District LCAP was developed with input from our Parent Guardian Advisory Committee, also called our Superintendent's Council, and other Ross Valley community partners such as our Teacher Leadership Group, Delight, our DLAC, our English Language Learner Group, district staff, district parent guardian equity teams, and students. And our LCAP prioritizes wellness, academic growth, and equity. And then per education code, sections 42127 and 52062, there must be 2 separate governing board public meetings held at least 1 day apart, required for the school district budget hearing and budget adoption. In addition, the LCAP public hearing must occur at the same meeting as the budget public hearing, and the LCAP adoption must occur at the same meeting as the budget adoption. And that's where we are this evening at our the adoption phase. So the LCAP item must precede the budget item at each meeting, and the public hearings require 72 hours of public notice, and both the 2022-23 budget and the 2022-23 LCAP must be adopted on or before July 1st. Our public hearing was held on Tuesday, May 31st in 2022, and tonight is the opportunity for the board to adopt our LCAP.
Any questions
None.
since the last meeting?
No questions? No changes to the, nothing was amended or changed, so there's not another full presentation.
Thank you for the work on it.
Of course. Any other questions from the board on our LCAP? We had a full presentation at the last meeting.
Right.
Correct. I make a motion?
No public,
Well,
no public comment?
comment. Oh, so we don't have any public comment on this item, and now we can bring it back to the board, so.
I would like to make a motion to approve the LCAP for 22-23 as presented last time. Thank you so much.
I'll second it.
Great, we have a motion and a second. We'll do a vote. Marie?
Aye.
And Rachel?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Shelley? Aye. Wesley?
Aye.
All right. We have our approved LCAP. And now we are on to the update on Governor Newsom's May revise, which will be quickly followed by our budget, since they're connected.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening regarding the May revise. It's a lot of slides, but they are going to go pretty quickly.
Okay.
And so what we'll be discussing this evening is kind of an economic overview, the LCFF, the discretionary block grant, universal meals for all, and STRS and PERS pension costs. And so in terms of the economic overview, things that we need to keep in mind. First and foremost, the gross domestic product, that's a measure of the economy, what we're producing. And generally what the standard has been for many, many years is that if you have 2 consecutive quarters of decline, that they would consider that to be a recession. And what you see there in 2020 is 2 consecutive quarters of decline, but that had to do with the pandemic shutdown. And so what they started, the government started doing is later looking at other factors to decide whether we are in a recession. And so although in the most recent quarter we are in decline, if we do have a decline in second quarter, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're in a recession, but it's something to keep an eye on. One thing to note is that they will be looking at is what does our stock market look like, and what you'll note is that so far this year we're down 15.6% as of the date of this publication. So it's not current as of today's market, but it is a pretty substantial decline. Another factor that is looked at in determining whether we're in a recession is what is our unemployment rate, and also looking at what is our workforce participation rate. And what's important to look at here is in 2021 we saw a decline in our participation, meaning that there were fewer people that wanted to work or did work. And so a lot of that had to do with the COVID pandemic shutdown as well. And you'll note that it's starting to increase at this particular point. And we're back up near where we were prior to the pandemic, which is good. Another thing that is important to look at in terms of impacts upon our budgets moving forward are the inflation rates. And this also helps to determine whether we're going to be going into a recession. And what I do want to talk about is stagflation very quickly, and I'll talk about it in the next slide as well. But it's a combination of these high interest rates that you see here, and some of these are at 40-year highs, so they're pretty high inflationary rates. But then the other part of that, in terms of talking about stagflation, is unemployment. And stagflation really is a combination of high unemployment and high inflationary rates and low unemployment. And generally that's caused by spikes in energy, and that's what we're seeing right now. And so one of the things that the government generally does is they start to increase interest rates when you start to see some of those inflationary rates. And the problem with doing that is you can also drive up your unemployment rate, and it just has this compounding effect and could hurt the economy greatly. So these are things that we really need to keep an eye on in terms of our budget status. And then risks to the budget. There's lots of things that I was just talking about, including things that I didn't, supply chain bottlenecks, and also the Ukraine-Russia war. That can have a negative impact upon our economic conditions, and there is a lot of that happening right now with fuel. Now, the reason I talked about all of that is because all of that can change these economic conditions that were presented within the May revised budget, which are, again, just estimates. But looking at our local control funding formula, which is the single largest source of revenues, I do want to point out that, again, we're supposed to enter into community funding, which means that our property taxes should be higher than our calculated LCFF, local control funding formula, for state aid. But some of these things that are on the horizon that could potentially happen within the May revise could affect one side of this equation and could potentially push us to teeter in and out, or could push us in depending on at what levels. So really what happened is, and this isn't unique to Ross Valley, this is a statewide issue. During the pandemic, many districts, the overwhelming majority of districts saw declining enrollment, coupled with, in the current year, a lower average daily attendance rate, which means that students are absent more. And that makes sense because we're telling people to stay home if they're sick at all, if they have the sniffles. Well, that increases your absentee rate, which decreases your ADA as well. So as a result, the governor has come up with some ideas on how to address that. One is, and you can see it kind of on the right, funding would be based on the greater of current year ADA, prior year ADA, or computed average ADA using the prior 3 years ADA. And so that's the one that I've been talking about, where they're trying to smooth that loss. And our numbers are not based upon this because this is just a presentation that the governor has put out. But when looking at it, and I highlighted it in red, this solution would only benefit school districts. And so there are other types of entities that are also impacted as well, because normally you would not have that for charter schools. There wouldn't be something, they don't feel that impact the following year like school districts do. So there are other options that are out there. So this is option 2, which would have an attendance for 1920 or 2122. And this slide is from school services. I'm thinking that they have the wrong date in there because at the top it says the 2122 ADA would be based on. It should be 2223, I believe.
Yeah, it needs to go like that.
Yeah. So, but this is a school services slide.
Yeah.
And then there's also a third alternative. And so this one would just be your current year ADA or prior year ADA, which is really where we're at now. And so there's 3 alternatives. The difficult thing for the Ross Valley School District is what do those numbers look like? And as I had mentioned in the last board meeting, the LCFF calculator had been adjusted for these different projected amounts. And unfortunately, it was wrong for our district from the state. And so I have asked the County Office of Education for it. Unfortunately, we didn't get their projection. I haven't pushed a great deal because today's the 14th of June and the budget should be out in a couple of weeks and I'll know the real numbers. But any projections that change our total in total revenues next year, if they are considered material, we would have to do a 45-day budget revision. More than likely, I'm thinking that it's going to adjust our second year of our multi-year projections, which would not be material for next year, but there are other things that would be. So And this is actually the one that would be material,
Oh, that's good.
the discretionary block grant. And there's lots of information in here, but really what I want to point out is that middle, where it's circled, at $1,500 per ADA, which is what they're estimating right now, it would be just under $2.5 million in revenues to the district. And so there's lots of projections and things that they're talking about. If you look here at this particular slide from school services, there's 3 different things on the table. And I know that there is a budget that has been on the table right now, and they're close to finalizing it. I haven't had a chance to look at what that looks like in relation to these 3. But even with this particular block grant, there are 3 different options on the table from the different groups, from the governor at the top, the assembly, and the Senate. And so that moves us into universal meals for all. And really, this is just letting everybody know, and you can see it right in the middle. Beginning in 22-23, all LEAs stands for local education agencies, which means school districts or charter schools, are required to provide 2 free meals per day to any student who requests a meal. And so we'll be offering a breakfast and a lunch to all of our students. And so that's really just letting you know. And then the final thing, and this is one of those things that has been disappointing to many people in the business side of education, we've seen some large increases in our STRS and PERS rates. And I'm sorry, it's a little small, but what you can see is historically, historically you see our STRS and our PERS rates. The PERS is the blue line and STRS is the red. Each year you see the percentage going up higher and higher and higher. And some of the years the state has added additional dollars to help buy down those rates. They didn't do it in this budget. And so that would be real dollars that could go towards other things. But right now it didn't happen. The only thing that did happen is that the estimated rates are slightly different. So we'll be making some adjustments in our expenses as we move forward on the PERS side. And that really summarizes.
You budgeted at 26.10? Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
A little bit higher rate. And so
I
we dropped it.
have a question. So what I didn't see in there was transitional kindergarten. So
transitional kindergarten is being funded. It is being funded in the state budget. It is not being funded for community funded districts.
Okay,
and
so that ended up not making it in there. All right.
At this particular point, it has not.
Okay, go ahead.
And so that it's still one of those things that's on the table and could come back with a trailer bill as well.
Okay.
And so that's why we continue to talk to our local legislators and hope that they understand the predicament that districts are in. It's particularly important when we have a requirement in our budget that we spend 60% of our funds in an elementary school district in what they call classroom education. And what that is your teacher salaries as well as your instructional aid salaries. And so every district that's an elementary district is required to do that. It's 55% for a unified district and 50% for a high school.
Yeah.
But our requirement is 60. So they're telling you have to put it into these areas, and now they're telling you have to spend it a different way. So really what they're telling you is you have to do cuts to programs in order to get there. And that's the difficult part for districts that are community funded.
Yeah. Thank you for the data.
Even if there is a trailer bill, it might just be for funding for a year. And then you've committed to a program.
Yeah, good point.
Before we move on, I want to just do a time check. I mean that it is almost 10:50. And so I just want to talk to staff about, I know there are certain things on the agenda that we have to get done because there's a specific time frame for them. And I'm wondering what else on this agenda might we be able to move to our July meeting? Worst case, a special meeting? Could you?
From talking to staff earlier today, anticipating that it might be a late night tonight. The only one it looks like we can move is an increase to certificated sub-daily rate, item F6. That was only slated to be a 5-minute item, but it can certainly be moved since our school year is ended and our new year has not begun. And we will have at least 2 meetings before the new school year does begin. So that can certainly move. The other items do require regular scheduled meetings, not special meeting. They cannot be discussed and or taken action on in a special meeting.
And they can't go to July at our regular meeting?
They have to be done by June 30.
So we're talking about another hour, another 2 hours. I just want you to know, this is just really a long.
How long do you have?
Because like we have,
I don't have 2 hours. I don't even know half hour.
I would think since consent is all in one, we can also waive any superintendent cabinet updates. We do not have to do those. Maybe board notes, board committee updates.
Well, if Rachel has done nothing, would be great. Thank you, Rachel. I can wait.
So I think we can get.
I can stay. Look, if 2 people leave and we need a quorum. We need 3. I can stay. I can stay so we can relieve some of these other trustees.
Okay. Because I know Ryan is going to fall asleep on my shoulder very quickly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So Ryan, how late are you able to stay?
I'm just about as tapped as I can.
I want to be sure that we note your time of departure is the reason I'm asking.
No, right.
Yeah.
Can you stay through the budget?
Is that 10 minutes?
Yes.
Or less.
Okay.
Or less.
Yes. Then I'd like to stay for the. I'd like to stay for the budget.
Thank you. That's what I want.
Sorry. Thank you.
So if anybody does need to leave, please make notes so that we can get it into it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I want to be here for the budget. Absolutely.
Okay, so let's go
I
ahead
dressed
and
up for that.
maintain form, we can continue.
Okay. All right, so let's go ahead. No public comment, no decision. On to the recommended adoption of the 22-23 district budget and multi-year projection.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak about this one. What we have before you this evening is the recommended approval of the budget for the 22-23 school year and also the 23-24 and 24-25 in terms of the multi-year projections. This is something that does have to be done on a regular board meeting. I do have to say that I don't have any additional information. It is adopted. There you go.
Anything new?
I don't have anything new to add based upon our budget and our last presentation. Really, it's just that we're currently experiencing declining enrollment. The only thing that is leveling us out a little bit at the end is the universal transitional kindergarten. And then these are our assumptions. There's been no change to our assumptions. Again, we are projecting to be in community funded status next year, but we are always looking at everything on the left side as well to see if we bounce in and out of state funding, which are things like your COLA and your ADA. And then in terms of our revenues, our single largest source of revenues is the local control funding formula, which is those revenues based on students and or the property taxes.
And again, no change from what we saw at the presentation last time?
No.
Okay.
No changes, and this just summarizes our multi-year revenues. Again, no changes.
So if anybody's listening and is interested in this, please listen to a recording from last meeting for much more detail on this, because we did go through this in a lot of detail at the last meeting. So.
And Chris, tell me about the certification. What is the recommended certification?
There really is not a certification when it comes to the adopted budget.
Okay.
But it would be a positive certification if I was to request it.
Right.
And the reason for that is that we are above the required minimum reserve, which is technically 3%, but in the third year, it's 14.72, and we do have a district governing board requirement for an additional 7%, which would make it a total of 10, and we are above that in terms of our multi-year projections.
Yeah. There is only one slide to look at, is this one.
Which is why I moved to this one.
And these are all the same numbers from last time?
And they are the same numbers from last time as well. So that really is looking at our multi-year projections and where we stand at this particular point, we are above that required minimum reserve and the governing board designated additional reserve.
No question.
Any other, is that our,
Any public comment?
is there any public comment?
public
No.
comment?
No public comment?
Therefore,
No questions?
I'm ready to make a motion to approve the 2022-23 district budget and multi-year projection for 23-24 and 24-25 as presented today. Thank you, Chris, for all the work you have put into that. I know how much work it is. Thank you.
I'll second the motion.
All right, so we have a motion and a second, and we'll do a roll call vote. Marie?
Aye.
Wesley?
Aye.
Rachel?
Aye.
Shelley? Aye. Ryan?
Aye.
All right, our budget, the budget is approved.
I'm gonna excuse myself this time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We're gonna note that we are losing Ryan at 10:55.
Ryan?
If the recommended approval to increase certificated substitute daily rates is.
I can do this in 2 minutes. So as you know that you all approved the increase for the 21-22 school year through the end of the 21-22 school year from 150 to 190. We did see an increase from the increased rate to the daily rate for the number of subs that filled our vacant position. Overall, countywide, we're down on subs by 100 overall countywide. We are, and you can see in the chart that I put up there, Teresa is getting Ryan to sign paper, so hasn't moved the agenda. But you can see where other districts in Marin County are, as I know you saw as you reviewed your board packet. And so therefore, in order to ensure that Ross Valley is able to, thank you so much, Julia, is able to continue to secure substitutes and be a district that substitutes are wanting to go to and do not turn us down for other districts that do pay higher. I am asking the board to increase the sub rate to $215 per day, and that's the full day rate, and then the half day rate, of course, is half of that. So it would be 95. So that's what I'm asking. Any public comment or discussion?
Quick question, when would this increase go in effect, and is it included in would it go, when would the approval of this show up in the next budget?
We would be taking a look at what those dollars are in total and comparing them as we go through the cycle. And so I wouldn't just go and add necessarily dollars to it, because sometimes what has happened is those dollars may not have been fully expended that we had set aside.
The other thing too is when we don't have adequate subs, our regular current employees pick up those sub duties, and it ends up costing more.
Yeah.
And so when Chris and I did a rough analysis of it, it doesn't look like it will actually cost anything more.
It might be a wash, right? Yeah, it might be a wash.
Yeah. All right, and the only last thing I'll add is other districts are talking about increasing their rates, and that's why I made the decision to go to 215 rather than to a straight 200, hoping that we don't have to come back with this item anytime soon.
Great. Any other
no, I don't have any questions. Public comment?
No, the offsetting, appreciate it, and I think we definitely want to have high quality substitutes just as much as we have high quality teachers, and I appreciate the fact that it will relieve a lot of the staff from having to be substitute teachers by actually having.
Okay, let's make a motion. I'll recommend approval of the increase.
Here, a motion and.
Rachel.
Motion and a second, we'll vote. Wesley?
Aye.
Rachel?
Aye.
Marie?
Aye.
Shelley? Aye.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. All right, on to item number 7, Universal Pre-Kindergarten Planning and Implementation Grant Program.
All right, so Julie and I will do this one tonight. So we did give you an overview a couple of meetings ago when we did an overview of all of the new programs coming into play. Yeah. So I think we could go through this really quickly tonight in terms of what this means for our district. And so moving on to the slides, I think I have the next one. So as we know that the state of California has put in place the expectation that all school districts do expand and offer TK to all 4-year-olds by the 2025-26 school year. So the 2022-23 school year begins the first year of the expanded implementation. And Julia, do you want to go?
Sure, do you have the clicker?
I do not.
I do.
This is what happened when we go past 10:30.
Yes,
And
thank you. I'll do the clicking.
To understand that this evening, the requirement is to present the grant plan to the board, and then this slide deck explains some of the elements. Did you want me to do this slide? I knew it. So
we already did this.
We really did. Okay, so one more slide. And you're going to hear you hear a lot of terms out there. So P3 refers to preschool through 3rd grade. TK we know about, those are transitional kindergartners. We're working at getting all of our 4-year-olds together. UPK also includes private preschool, Head Start, programs like that. Next slide. And this is really just another visual that explains what universal pre-K is, and that's the name of the grant plan. But the part that's really important for Ross Valley is universal TK, and that's the required element from the state. And we sought input from many of our educational partners, including those that you see listed here, like First 5 Marin. There was a parent survey that went out that gave us data. That was a countywide survey, but that had a question about what district parents were from, so that each district was able to collect data. We met with our TK teachers, our K teachers, and collaborated with a working group that was run through MCOE.
All right, and I said this part already. So TK, school districts must offer TK. However, families have a choice of what their child receives. They do not have to have their child attend TK. And it will be implemented and fully implemented by 25-26. The classroom ratios for 22-23 are a 12-to-1 student ratio. And it doesn't mean, adult to child ratio. And it doesn't mean that you have to necessarily have a class size of 12. You can have a class size of 24. That's the maximum class size. But the adult to child ratio needs to be 12-to-1. And beginning in 23-24, that goes down to 10-to-1. But this is an unfunded mandate for community-funded districts, as we just saw in the previous presentation on the budget, that we will not receive the additional funding that other districts that are in local control will receive. And so this definitely will pose a hardship on the Ross Valley School District. And the last part that I want to mention or reflect on is what Chris said, is that the state has an expectation that school districts will cut other programs in order to offer this. So let that sit with you for a minute. So other things that we offer in our schools, like electives, enrichment cycle, those they would be expecting us to cut in order to fund a program for one grade level of students. And so because of this, we have sought legal counsel and have an understanding that because we will be, and when we are, while we are, if we're a teeter district in community funded, we do not have to implement it as the state is asking because it is an unfunded mandate. So our belief is that the expansion of TK is beneficial to 4-year-olds, to all students, and we will continue to implement the expansion. What we are likely not to do is to implement that 12-to-1 or 10-to-1 ratio. So as we're looking for in the 22-23 school year, we will have the same amount of aid time in the classroom as we do for our kindergarten classrooms. So each school site is allocated a certain amount of aid time, and we know that we siphon off right off the top 1 hour per day for each of our kindergarten and TK classrooms, and then the principal has the autonomy to determine how the rest of their allotted aid time is utilized. They can decide to put more in TK. If they have a combination class, they may decide that that class needs more aid time. in 2-3 combination as an example, or they might have a particular need in a grade level and may put more aid time there. And so that's what we are looking for. And I'll just stop in case there are any questions around the unfunded mandate in this ratio.
Despite the fact that it's an unfunded mandate, you still believe that and are recommending approval of this, Chris?
I do recommend.
Okay, good.
Because it's in the best interest of children.
Totally, I understand.
And remind me, the adult to student, it doesn't mean teacher, right? It could
No,
be,
it
yeah,
just
it's
means
definitely
adult.
that, right?
So
Okay.
you can fill that adult to
Teacher
student
and
ratio
aide.
with a teacher and an aide
And
as
aide.
an example.
Perfect.
But the way that the state has rolled it out is the expectation is it's for the entire length of the TK day, not just, so the part that we're
We are
unable to do-
taking liberty on that piece.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, that's
And
fair.
if you think about when it goes down to a 10-to-1 ratio, think about that for a minute. The maximum class size is 24, but the ratio is 10-to-1. So if you have 24 kids in the class, how many adults do you need in the class?
3.
3.
We're good at math.
Yes, good.
Okay.
Glad to hear it. All right,
So I don't know if you want to go out for public comment on this?
not yet.
Okay.
All right, and
Alrighty.
so here's just a slide that shows the implementation in terms of the expansion by months.
Yeah.
So I won't go into that. Teacher credentialing, so there are teacher credentialing requirements. They must be in place by August 1, 2023. One of the reasons that Julia and I met with our TK teachers outside of this meeting, wanting to make sure we gathered input and made sure they were aware, is to ensure that our TK teachers know about this requirement so that if any of them do not have the 24 units or the early childhood permit, that we know that we'll be supporting them getting on track to doing that. And our goal and our vision for UTK is that every 4-year-old will have access to a high quality TK program that provides the whole child approach and encourages our young learners in a vital, emotional, and hands-on academic skills that lead to success in kindergarten and beyond. I think that was Julia's slide, so next one, Julia. Oh,
And these are our
That's-
configurations for the coming year, for next
Oh.
year. So we'll have 2 standalone TKs as it looks like right now, and the other sites will have TKK combos. And the TKK combos, this is probably the last year that we'll be having those because the discrepancy or the difference between ages is going to become too great to combine those kids.
So we are thrilled that we'll be able to offer it at each of our sites, but going forward in 23, 24, it may not be that way. I know some other districts, they house it, district-wide as an example, and we may go back to that. We used to do that as well. But we don't have enough students for a full class at each of our school sites.
And really, this slide is just talking about, students will receive the same high quality instruction in TK that they would in any other grade. So with appropriate curriculum and assessments that give us the information we need, and a focus on social emotional learning, executive functioning, and of course, any services that they need, they'll receive those services as well.
Yeah. So that takes us to the end of the presentation. This is not an action item tonight. It was just a presentation in which we present the plan to you. And then we will have met our requirements in accordance with the state.
Beautiful plan.
Thank you. Any other questions? And any other public comment questions? All right. On to item number 8, recommended approval of the Extended Learning Opportunities Plan, otherwise known as ELO-P.
Oh, yeah. This one requires
This
approval,
one
right?
is approval.
This does require approval. And so we don't have a formal presentation on this, but I do want to discuss very quickly that at the last governing board meeting, we did have a slide that talked about this ELO-P program, and the district is slated to receive approximately $341,000 from it. The issue is that the state has never really provided all of the information on it, and so at this particular juncture, it's difficult because they're even today they're still working on what does that program look like moving forward. And so we've put together this plan, and this is the 9-hour day program for you're unduplicated pupils, and it would also be providing, in addition to the regular school year, a 9-hour day, it would be providing 30 days worth of intersession. And so we did want to put together the plan because the requirement, if you're going to move forward with it, is that you have the plan. And we did want to note that we would be working with a community partner potentially to offer this program moving forward as we analyze it and see how we can implement it in the Ross Valley School District for our children. The one caveat that might provide a little challenging is it is TK through 6th grade, which means that 6th grade would be just at White Hill. And so you would only have one grade level at White Hill. So that does provide a little challenging, but it would certainly be something that we would look to alleviate that issue.
And is this just a 1-year plan, or they require, it's ongoing?
It's ongoing.
It's ongoing. So this isn't like a short-term COVID recovery kind of, this is a shift completely
That's not going away.
the operations of school districts in terms of hours.
And there are a number of districts in the county and in the state that are looking for ways to be able to give the dollars back because they don't know how they're going to implement the program. Simply because they have low numbers and it's difficult to get staff, and are the dollars really going to be enough to be able to offer this program to the number of children? But it's absolutely something that we want to take a look at and see if it's viable in the Ross Valley School District.
Any other questions?
None.
No. All right.
Public comment?
Public comment.
Just want to make sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. No.
Because I was getting ready to make a motion to approve the ELO-P, the ELO plan. Thank you. ELO-P plan.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Motion and a second. We're going to go for a vote. Marie?
Aye.
Wesley?
Aye.
Rachel?
Aye.
And Shelley? Aye. All right. Keep us appraised as things roll out on that in the future. And now we're on to the recommended adoption of Resolution 11-21-22, which is the transfer of funds. This is a standard.
This is our standard annual that allows us to be able to move funds within district funds if there's a temporary borrowing needed.
Got it.
Is this something you need on file, basically?
Yes, we need it on file with the county office in order to do the transfers.
Okay.
Yep. I remember seeing this in past years. Yep. We do this regularly.
Yeah, this is one that has to be done once a year.
Once a year. Yep.
Do you want a motion or do you want public comment?
Any public comment on this? Nope. Okay, go ahead.
I'll move approval of the action item for resolution 11-21-22 transfer of funds.
I'll second. Then we'll do vote. Wesley?
Aye.
Shelley? Aye. Rachel? Aye. Great.
Aye.
All right. I'll walk down and grab it. I'll start the signatures.
Oh yes, we have to sign all of these. So we are now on to item number 10, which is recommended adoption of resolution 12-21-22, 13-21-22, and 14-21-22, which is an authorization to sign on behalf of the governing board. Again,
And this is
the
our
regular.
This is our once a year again. This allows us to be able to sign on behalf of the district, and would be for Julia Walcott, myself, and Marcy Trahan, and allows us to sign things such as purchase orders, contracts, those types of things, ultimately, that would bind the district to require us to pay things. And so it would allow us to do those. And this is something that happens every year.
And the three of you have the same authority, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which could be simple.
No changes to the one from prior years. It's just the standard operating to keep the business running so that you can sign the checks that are for the contracts that we've approved. And it's not like you're doing any, I'm just restating for people who might be listening. It's not, we approve the contracts and then you sign the checks for them. So, is there any other questions?
No question on that.
Okay. Entertaining, no public comment.
And so we can go
So I
ahead
can-
and entertain that.
I want to make a motion to adopt the resolution 12/21/22, 13/21/22, and 14/21/22, authorization to sign on behalf of the governing board.
I'll second that.
A motion and a second. So we'll vote. Marie?
Aye.
Rachel?
Aye.
Shelley? Aye. Wesley?
Aye.
Okay.
You're gonna have to
Item,
collect a signature from Ryan on some of these later, I think.
okay. We're gonna go with
From the
yours.
10, yep.
And you have to do it silently. Everybody can hear it. Oh, yeah. We're gonna recommend adoption, I'm sorry, item number 11, which is the recommended adoption of resolution 15-21-22, which is the tax anticipation notes, or TAN, for the 2022-23 school year. Can you tell us a little bit about this?
Yes, so the governing board is being requested to adopt this resolution, which would allow us to be able to borrow money from the county of Marin should we have a shortfall. And this is something that's very nice that the county of Marin offers. It's unique in the state, and it is badly needed when you are a community funded district because of the way we get our tax revenues. And so what they do is they offer to allow you to go negative, and they just charge you negative interest income on it. And so it's a benefit. It makes it so the district does not have to go out and issue what are called tax revenue anticipation notes, which there's a borrowing cost to that. We have to pay interest on it in addition to the borrowing costs. And so this is something very nice that the county of Marin does, and we do this every year and respectfully request that the governing board approve it.
So again, another process that we do every year, just as a opportunity, just to make sure that we can do it if we need it.
Run business.
All right. Any questions?
No question?
No public comment? So we can again entertain a motion.
I move that we adopt resolution 15/21/22, authorizing tax anticipation notes for 22-23.
All right, we have a motion from Rachel
Second?
and a second from Marie. We'll go ahead and vote. Rachel?
Aye.
Marie?
Aye.
Shelley? Aye. Wesley?
Aye.
All right. That motion passes, and we are on to item number 12. Item number 12 is recommended adoption of resolution 16-21-22, which is an education protection account, other known as EPA. It's a spending plan for the 2022-23 school year.
And this is the Chris show tonight. I apologize. This is another one of those perfunctory resolutions. It has to be tied to our adopted budget every year, and it is a result of Proposition 30, which was passed by the voters in the state several years ago. And in essence, what we have to do is let the public know and pass a resolution stating how we're going to spend these additional tax dollars, which were basically just a shell game for the state in many ways. And we cannot use it in certain ways. We can't use it for things such as salary and benefits of administrators or other administrative costs. And so what we are doing, as we have done historically, is spend it on teacher salaries and benefits. And we request that the governing board approve this resolution, doing that this evening for the 22-23 school year within our adopted budget.
Any questions on this from the board or not? No public comment?
Okay.
We can.
Ready to make a motion to adopt the resolution 16/21/22 regarding the EPA spending plan for the 22-23 school year.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. We'll vote. Marie?
Aye.
Wesley?
Aye.
Rachel?
Aye.
Shelley? Aye. All right. Deep breath.
And then we have.
And now we are on to item G, the consent actions.
Yeah.
And we have, we've got 13 consent actions on there. Are there any questions or any, does anybody have any questions about those or need to pull anything?
I'm good.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, just look at them earlier. So I think yes, no question.
no questions.
No.
And any public comment? No public comment, so.
I'll move consent.
I second.
So we have a motion and a second for all of our consent items. We'll vote. Wesley?
Aye.
Marie?
Aye.
Rachel?
Aye.
And Shelley? Aye. All right, so we have finished with our consent items. Board business, committee updates, we had talked about that we can put those committee updates unless there's anything vital or extremely timely, which I'm not seeing any heads shaking or hands raised. We probably should do approval of the meeting minutes for May 31st.
Oh yeah, we can do that. Yeah.
Are there any edits or updates to those meeting minutes?
I didn't see any.
Okay,
Yeah. No. Okay with them.
haven't seen any. So we can entertain a motion on that.
I'll move the approval of the meeting minutes for May 31, 2022.
And I second.
So we have a motion and a second for the meeting minutes. Wesley?
Aye.
Marie?
Aye.
Shelley? Aye. Rachel?
Aye.
All right. Approval of those meeting minutes. Shall we skip the?
I think we're fine to skip the superintendent
Yeah.
updates, yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. So.
And we can skip the meeting review for now. Talk about it again if we need to at a later date.
Yeah.
And then debrief.
Well, I just wanted to thank you for running the meeting.
Yeah. Thank you.
Meeting debrief.
Was it?
Yeah.
Is that where we were? I thought we got to debrief.
We were in the meeting debrief. We were there, so you just
Yeah.
debriefed.
And I apologize for popping up, but I think it was time
No, I
to
appreciate
take a break.
Yeah.
And I think that frankly I needed to use the bathroom.
That's a good reason.
but-
Just need that.
I think it was time to just try to take a little bit of a breather.
Okay. Well, thank you all for being here. I know this was a huge packed agenda.
Sure. I don't think that anyone was surprised at that. It's an issue that's very important to the community.
Yep.
The thing that was most surprising to me was how the community had it in their mind that this was on for an action item.
So we.
And I understand that.
Okay.
I want that to be as part of the debrief.
Okay. Yeah.
It wasn't action, that was just discussion.
Because debrief is a discussion of
Yeah.
what occurred this evening.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was interesting to me that people were coming in thinking one thing, that this was going to be an action item when it never was going to be an action item.
Yeah.
And it was very clear that it was never going to be an action item. So I just thought that as part of our debrief that's something we should discuss.
All right. It is
We're not passing.
just
11:30.
shy of 11:30, and we have. I'm going to go ahead and close the meeting before it gets to be 11:30. So, thank you all, and we will adjourn at 11:22.